Hi guys, this is Hirosaki. This story is all about what if Naruto uncovers his true potential. One discussion in the academy introduces Naruto to his first real friends and changes his life forever. Together, they will work hard, push each other, and unlock their true potential. Before we start, kindly like and subscribe to this channel, and look over the description box for the author of this amazing storyline. Welcome aboard. Chapter 46, A Need for Peace. Naruto-kun? Naruto's eyes slightly opened at the sound of the voice. He had a long day and was trying to enjoy any amount of sleep that he could get. He wanted to go to sleep, but he recognized the voice and knew that he was needed. It took him a few moments to adjust, but he finally managed to open his eyes fully and sit up in bed. Now that he was awake enough to take in his surroundings, he noticed Hinata standing right by his bed. "Hinata-chan, what are you doing here?" he asked. "Isn't your room on another floor in the inn? Jiraiya-sama let me in when I knocked on your door." The Hyuga answered. She then gave him a serious look. "Naruto-kun, I need your help." "It's Shikamaru-kun." Naruto instantly became alert. The boy shot up out of his bed and gave his new girlfriend his full attention. "I got up to go to the bathroom, and I noticed Shikamaru-kun wasn't in our room. His training gear was all gone too." Hinata told him with a frown on her face. "I think I might know where he is, but I think he may need some help. I don't think he's recovered at all from his mission, and he needs somebody to talk to him. I want to help him, but I think you can help him more than me. So, can you come with me to find him?" "Of course." The blonde nodded his head. It took the blonde precisely 1 minute to get properly dressed. Once he was ready, he and Hinata left the inn and hurried out into the village, trying to find Shikamaru. Hinata's guess proved to be correct. Shikamaru was in one of the various clearings outside the village of Kibo. He was currently breathing very heavily, and had a few burn marks and bruises on his body. The Nara had brought a couple of different seals on tree branches, creating light in the area. Directly in front of him was a large fire that looked as if it could engulf the entire forest around the village if given the chance to grow. As Naruto and Hinata arrived at the scene, Shikamaru was currently running through various hand signs. Within an instant, the shadows in the clearing came together and forced a large circular orb around the flame. Within seconds, the shadows closed in the flames, covering it completely. Shikamaru released the technique. When the shadows cleared, the fire was nowhere to be seen. "My shadows are getting stronger. Good." He mumbled to himself as he started to make hand signs. "Now let's see if they are getting dash." "Shikamaru!" Naruto called out to his friend. On instinct, Shikamaru made a singular hand sign, and his shadow charged directly towards Naruto and Hinata, branching off into two separate streams before reaching them. Neither Chunin could react in time. He managed to catch them in his shadow, and had them unable to move. "What the hell?" Naruto gasped. "So, my shadows are getting faster too." Shikamaru sighed in relief. He then finally gave his attention to Naruto and Hinata. "What are you two doing up? Shouldn't you both be asleep? Hinata returned his question back to him. "You weren't in the room when I woke up. Can't sleep. Thought it'd be a good idea to just get more training done." The Nara replied. His face started to twitch, as if he was struggling to maintain his jutsu. It was a practical thought. "Shikamaru, you need rest." Naruto replied, shaking his head in disagreement. The blonde proceeded to push back, trying to break free from Shikamaru's jutsu. Shikamaru immediately made a singular hand sign, tightening his grip on his control of Naruto and Hinata. "Nah. This is time I can actually do something a little more useful than sleeping. Shikamaru." Naruto shouted his friend's name. The Uzumaki proceeded to start wailing forward despite the shadows controlling him. Shikamaru's eyes widened as he noticed his friend getting closer to him. He then started to shake his head in disappointment. Fuck, not strong enough. He cursed. They're plenty strong, Shikamaru. They're just not as strong as they can be though, because you're tired. You're exhausted. Naruto stated as he continued to move closer to him. How long have you been out here training? Hinata asked. She was not attempting to struggle against Shikamaru's control and, therefore, was still in her place. A couple of hours. I don't really remember when I started. Shikamaru shrugged. Need to get stronger. You're plenty strong, Shikamaru. Naruto declared. Shikamaru's eyes narrowed in anger as he stopped channeling his jutsu. He then rushed over to Naruto and tackled him to the ground. Then why the fuck wasn't I able to save the hostages? Why was I not able to do anything? Shikamaru hissed before getting directly in Naruto's face. Why the fuck are they all dead? It's not your fault. You didn't know about the bombs that the guy had already set up. Naruto stated, making no attempt to fight back against his friend. It doesn't matter. We're shinobi, we should have been able to do something. I should have been able to. Shikamaru started to sob loudly and uncontrollably. I was put on that mission for a reason, and I ended up doing absolutely fucking nothing. And now the mission's a failure, and they're all dead. That little girl is dead, and it's all my dash. The Nara was unable to finish his rant. Naruto proceeded to push back and force Shikamaru off of him. He proceeded to roll backwards on the ground for a moment. He winced in pain as Naruto rushed back to him. I don't pretend to know what it's like, Shikamaru. I don't know what it's like to see people die like that on a mission. Naruto admitted. The blonde was now starting to cry at the thought of the sight. He couldn't imagine, he didn't want to imagine it. But, you can't go and blame yourself. You did what you could do dash. Which was what? Shikamaru interrupted him with a scoff. As he started to pull himself back off the ground. I wasn't able to do anything. I'm not strong enough. Then get stronger. But you're not going to get stronger pushing yourself like this. You're overworking yourself, Shikamaru. I haven't reached that point. He retorted. Naruto responded by shoving Shikamaru back to the ground. He winced upon making contact. Naruto-kun. Hinata shouted in surprise as she rushed over to Shikamaru. What are you doing? Naruto didn't immediately reply. His eyes were focused on his friend. Shikamaru was trying to pull himself off the ground, but he was getting up at an incredibly slow pace. I didn't push you over hard, Shikamaru. If you were really okay, you'd have been up by now. You're exhausted. Naruto said with finality in his voice. So what? You just want me to give up? Just accept where I'm at. Because if that's how it has to be, then I'm not qualified to be on this fucking mission fighting a goddamn war. Shikamaru screamed. His sobs seemingly intensified. I didn't say accept it, I just said you are exhausted. You'll keep training tomorrow and the remaining days. And we'll be training with you. Naruto declared. The blonde reached over to Shikamaru and grabbed his hand. He then proceeded to pull him up to his feet before he could do anything. Shikamaru, you're not alone. We are here. And we want to make sure nothing like that mission happens again to anybody. Not as long as any of us are on the mission. We're your friends, Shikamaru-kun. Hinata spoke up as she placed her hand on Shikamaru's shoulder. And we'll always be there for you. And we will grow stronger together. I believe you. I know that. But Shikamaru proceeded to shake his head as he rubbed the tears out of his eyes. I see the faces of all 5 of the hostages every time I close my eyes now. I hear Mari cry every time. I can't sleep. More tears came from his eyes despite his efforts to get rid of them. Please, don't make me try to go back to sleep. I want to go even just a few hours without seeing and hearing them die. Naruto and Hinata did not immediately reply. The group of three remained still. The only noise was the occasional sob from Shikamaru. Roughly 5 minutes had passed before Naruto spoke up. Maybe, the three of us should sleep together. He suggested. If you have any nightmares and see or hear anything, Shikamaru, wake us up. We're here for you, Shikamaru, and I want to make sure you know that. I'd rather dash. I agree with Naruto-kun. Hinata nodded her head in agreement. Shikamaru-kun, he's right. We're your friends. And we'll always be there for you when you need us. Shikamaru really didn't know what to say. He knew for a fact that he most likely was not going to get any sleep. He was afraid to even try. However, he was not unaware of his limitations. After Naruto proved his point by shoving him to the ground, he knew he was too drained to really do anything productive. He needed rest. He was also comforted at the idea of having his friends by his side. Maybe they would be able to help him relax for the first time in days. Fine. Shikamaru finally voiced his thoughts. With those words, the three members of Team 3 started to walk back to the inn together. For the night, they would be together. They were friends and would always be there together. Tonight was going to be one night where they proved that sentiment. You want me to what? Jiraiya questioned. The Sannin and Naruto had agreed to meet up at their usual training ground at 9 o'clock. Their training ground was usually deserted by the time Jiraiya arrived there. Today, however, Naruto had beaten him there, and he was accompanied by his two teammates. I want you to try and help Shikamaru and Hinata-chan get stronger too, if you can. Naruto requested. Our upcoming mission is going to be serious, Jiraiya-sama. Hinata spoke to the man, making a conscious effort to put reverence in her voice that was owed to a member of the Sannin. It would be greatly appreciated if you could provide some guidance in order to help us grow in order to increase our odds of survival and success during the mission. Yeah, I get that. Jiraiya replied by crossing his arms over his chest. I mean, you two are more than welcome to join our training, but most of everything I had planned is for Naruto's skill set. I can try and provide some stuff for you too, but I don't know how useful it'll be for you both. We can do our own things when necessary. However, anything extra you can provide would be useful for us, Jiraiya-sama. Shikamaru added, speaking to Jiraiya in a similar tone of voice as Hinata. Alright, since you two asked so nicely. Jiraiya replied with a shrug. Naruto and I were going to open the day off with some general exercises. After that, we'll spend about 20 minutes in meditation, and then move on to some more interesting stuff. I'm sure I can think of something for you both to do, but for now, just join us in the exercises. Both Hinata and Shikamaru nodded in understanding. Alright, that'll be enough meditation for now. Jiraiya informed the three Chunin. Naruto, Hinata, and Shikamaru stood up from a sitting position, and looked up at the Sannin in expectation. I see you two look better from the exercises after some meditation. The Sannin noted. Both Hinata and Shikamaru nodded in response. Jiraiya's exercises were reminiscent of Anko's training. While he didn't have the slightly sadistic nature that she had that made the exercises more intense, he still forced them to go through the same workload that they went through with her. They had been physically exhausted after completion. However, the meditation helped them recover slightly. The brief period helped their body recover, and helped them clear their mind up slightly. By the end of their meditation, they were all ready for more training. What did you have planned next, Ero Sennin? Naruto asked. Jiraiya shook his head and mumbled something along the lines of "don't call me that" before actually responding to his question. For you, I want to work on improving the Rasengan. There's a variant that's a much larger, stronger version that's commonly referred to as Otama Rasengan that I'd like you to pick up. I also want to see if you can throw it. Ha! Throw it? The blonde blinked in confusion. It's an idea that entered my head. Maybe we could make it a projectile. the Sannin said with a chuckle. That would actually be super cool. Naruto started to cheer at the thought. Hell yeah, I'll definitely start working with it. Good. Jiraiya nodded his head, satisfied with work for Naruto at the moment. He then turned his attention towards the other two Chunin. As for you both, do you have anything you are working on? I've been doing some work with a particular water-style jutsu that somebody gave me. Hinata said as she pulled out the scroll for water-style, giant vortex jutsu. How is that going? He asked. Good. I'm making progress with it, I think. She said with a sigh. But it's a lot of work though. It requires a lot of brute strength that I'm still trying to create. Keep working with it. Maybe I can assist in helping you find that strength. Jiraiya mentioned. He then turned his head to Shikamaru. And you? I just finished working on a fire-style jutsu I had been working on. I'm open for suggestions. Shikamaru said. Jiraiya noted that Shikamaru's tone was filled with bitterness. He had listened to Naruto explain the Nara's situation to him earlier the day before. He could tell Shikamaru, although seemingly a little better than he had been after the mission, was still very bothered and wanted to make himself stronger. Although the Sannin had not known him for long, everything he had seen and heard about Shikamaru suggested somebody with a rational, tactical mind with good control of emotions and limits. Perhaps he would benefit from learning something with some power to it in order to help him feel better. I have an interesting idea for you that might suit somebody as tactical as you, Shikamaru. Jiraiya commented. He then made a hand sign. Shadow Clone Jutsu. He then formed two separate clones of himself. One of the clones walked over to Shikamaru while the other went to Hinata. So, I take it we are going to do some independent training with the clones? Hinata questioned. Yup. Jiraiya nodded his head. We'll end the sessions when I feel like it. For now though, get to work. With those words, the clones of Jiraiya escorted Shikamaru and Hinata to separate areas of the training ground. Naruto and Jiraiya were left alone. Now, back to what we were talking about. The Sannin declared as he focused on his godson. You want to show me your Rasengan? I can do that. The blonde replied as he started to channel his chakra into the palm of his hand. After a minute of walking, Shikamaru and the clone of Jiraiya arrived at another area nearby the training grounds. It was a largely swampy area with thick mud that stuck to their shoes. Jiraiya's clone eventually stopped walking, causing Shikamaru to look at him in expectation. So, you said something about an idea for me? He questioned the clone. I did, but I wanted to ask some questions to you really quick. Jiraiya's clone questioned. What are your thoughts about your last mission? Oh, you know about it too. Of course, you would. Shikamaru shook his head. This was the last thing he wanted to talk about with somebody he didn't really personally know. However, Jiraiya was offering to help him. The Nara told himself that before taking in a deep breath and answering his question. I felt weak and hopeless. I thought the mission was going well, and then Karatoriki pulled out a trump card that we hadn't expected. We accomplished nothing. I couldn't save anybody there. Shikamaru said emptily. I have never felt so useless in my entire life. And I never want to experience that again. I don't want to see anybody die like that for no reason. And if you were stronger? What would you do? Jiraiya's clone questioned him. I just want to do what I can. He answered. He looked as if he was struggling to come up with the proper words to express what he was thinking. Just, know a few more jutsu, know a few more tactics, and have my brain function a little better. I just want to do what I can to make sure nobody dies like that. I want to make sure I can keep my friends, family, and any clients of mine safe. So, it's about protecting people? The clone continued to ask. Shikamaru nodded his head. No one deserves to die like that. I want to make sure something like that never happens again. I see. Jiraiya's clone nodded his head in understanding. I have another question for you. Considering the type of mission you'll be going on soon, what would happen if you were to run into Karatoriki again? Would you try and kill him? Of course. Shikamaru nodded his head and spoke with aggression. That asshole is responsible for so much suffering and death. It wasn't just those 5, he's taken joy in killing so many. He needs to die before he can do more executions like that. If given the opportunity, I would love to do it myself. But it's not a priority for you, is it? Jiraiya's clone questioned. Shikamaru realized what the clone was actually getting at. He proceeded to shake his head. No, I won't let my anger consume me and go on a hunt for revenge. I want him dead, but I want the regime responsible for him to be destroyed more. I'd be okay if somebody else does the honor. I'll just do my part for the mission and leave it at that. I see. The clone smiled sadly at the younger shinobi. I know this may not mean much, but as somebody who has fought in war previously, and have come across many ruined villages and seen many hostage situations, it gets easier. You tend to be able to forget about things on certain days, and it becomes a lot easier with time. Is it necessarily a good thing that it does, though? Shikamaru asked. That you become numb to shit like that? I suppose not, but it's the only way people like us can keep our sanity. The clone sighed. You just have to get stronger, so that way you can keep getting better, so you have the strength to save even one person during the next circumstance like that. I suppose. The Chunin sighed in response. The Nara still appeared to have a troubled look on his face due to the topic and the associated thoughts, but his conversation with Jiraiya's clone seemed to relax himself slightly. Hearing the clone's comments about the nights getting easier was a relief to him at least. All that matters right now, I guess, is to get to that point. And the first way to that is to get stronger. He told himself. He then looked at the clone with determination in his eyes. So, what did you want to work with me? Jiraiya's clone smirked as he pulled out a scroll. I got a jutsu for you. It's one of my personal favorites, but it's a tough one. It's 8-rank Earth-style jutsu, so it'll take a lot of time. I don't know if you can learn it in the next couple of days, but I know this is the type of jutsu you would benefit from knowing. It suits a tactician like you and can be used for offense, defense, and support. The clone proceeded to toss the scroll towards Shikamaru. The Chunin caught the scroll in his right hand and proceeded to look at it. Earth-style, Swamp of the Underworld. He read the title. You ready to get started, Shikamaru? This won't be easy, but I know you would benefit greatly from knowing it. Jiraiya's clone mentioned. Shikamaru turned his attention back to the clone and nodded his head. For the first time in the past few days, the Chunin allowed a smirk develop on his face. Bring it on. He declared. Water-style, Giant Vortex Jutsu. After finishing the necessary hand signs, Hinata clapped her hands together. Water from a nearby swampland rose into the sky and formed a massive circular object. As it continued to rise into the sky, it increased in size as more water entered its body. Hinata remained concentrated on creating the jutsu. After a few seconds, however, the construct of water blew up, causing the water to plummet to the ground. Darn it. Hinata grumbled as she started to breathe heavily. The attempt at using the jutsu had taken a lot out of her. Good thing you didn't have that thing over your head. Otherwise, you'd be soaked. Jiraiya's clone mentioned. A playful smirk then developed on his face. It's also a good thing you're not wearing all white. Let's not talk about that, please. Hinata's face turned red at the thought. She remembered practicing with her jutsus earlier this week and getting soaked from the training. She didn't want to throw that again and completely drench her clothes. Whatever you say. The clone chuckled for a moment. I think I know your issue, though. I think you do have enough strength to create the jutsu. You can make the construct for the jutsu pretty easily, and I can tell that it will do a lot of damage if you can send it flying at an opponent. Your problem is that you don't seem able to hold on to it for that long. I know. Hinata admitted with a sigh. It takes too much out of me to hold on to it for a while. Well, the jutsu requires a lot of chakra. Jiraiya's clone mentioned. The best way to pick up the jutsu would be to increase your chakra reserves. I know. The Chunin mumbled a reply. I know some exercises that Anko-sensei taught me to increase my reserves. That wouldn't be a bad idea, but I'd also suggest you keep trying to use the jutsu. The clone mentioned. It clearly requires more chakra than you are capable of using, so it's pushing you. So long as you don't overexert yourself, trying to perform the jutsu should, over time, increase your reserves and make it so that you'll be able to perform the jutsu with little difficulty. You think so? Hinata questioned. Yeah. Jiraiya's clone said. It's a good attitude to have. Just keep trying something until you get it. I think with enough attempts, your reserves will get to a good enough point. Okay. Hinata smiled as she nodded her head. So yeah, when you think you are ready, I'd suggest making another attempt at the jutsu. Just don't push yourself too hard. The clone informed her. All right. Hinata declared excitedly. 3 hours passed by before the group reunited with each other. The clones of Jiraiya escorted Shikamaru and Hinata, who were both breathing heavily from trying to perfect A-rank jutsus, back to the central training area before they dispelled themselves. Upon arrival, Shikamaru and Hinata took a moment to look at the training ground they had been at earlier that day. What happened here? Shikamaru asked. The area had been filled with various trees that were no longer present. While most of them were gone completely, a few of them were now stumps that appeared to have the top half completely blown off. Both Shikamaru and Hinata turned their attention to Naruto, who was laughing sheepishly as he rubbed the back of his head. As I said when we separated, the brat and I were experimenting to see if he can actually toss the Rasengan and use it as a projectile. Jiraiya stated with a slight chuckle. And it actually worked. He was just a little liberal with his usage. Hee heh. Naruto continued to laugh sheepishly. Hinata proceeded to giggle at her new boyfriend's action. Good job, Naruto. How did that other Rasengan training go? Shikamaru questioned. That Otama Rasengan? It's a work in progress. Naruto admitted with a sigh. But hey, it's getting there. I'll be able to do it in no time. He will. And judging from the memories I got from my clones, I think the two of you are making progress with your own jutsus to have them ready in a day or two more. Jiraiya stated confidently. Really? Shikamaru's eyes widened at the statement. Why you think so? I know so. The Sannin nodded his head in affirmation. You're tough kids. You're going to be some of the best shinobi Konoha has seen. I have no doubt that you'll all get your jutsus done in just a little bit. The members of Team 3, even Shikamaru, smiled at his words. The words of somebody as skilled as Jiraiya carried some weight. The fact that he believed such an idea meant something to each of them. We'll make you proud, Ero Sennin. Naruto declared with a thumbs up. Stop calling me that. Jiraiya shouted. Hinata proceeded to giggle at Jiraiya's and Naruto's banter while Shikamaru let out a small snort. The sound of his laugh caused Naruto and Hinata to both turn their attention towards their friend and smile. You're still struggling, but you seem like you're getting better, Shikamaru-kun. What a relief. Hinata thought to herself. Anyway, you all can take an hour break or so. Get food. Jiraiya suggested. Although, not going to lie, it's probably going to be some more independent training when you all get back. I was planning on working on some Fuinjutsu with Naruto, and getting back to work with the Otama Rasengan, so if you both want some more training with a clone of mine, you're welcome to still come back. I'll take you up on that offer. Hinata replied. Shikamaru nodded his head in silent agreement. With Jiraiya's words in mind, the trio walked off away from the training ground and towards the village, preparing to get something to eat. The members of Team 3 had found a ramen stand and sat down there. It only took a couple of minutes after ordering their food before they received their bowls of ramen. They each started to eat rather quickly. You know, Naruto was quick to finish his bowl of miso ramen and signal for another bowl. I do really like this place, but I kinda miss Ichiraku's. Yeah, I miss it too. And Konoha really. Hinata said with a slight frown. It's been a long time since we've been back home. It really does feel like we've been here for a while. Shikamaru said with a sigh. Should be coming to an end soon though. Once Enko-sensei's team gets back, we are going to invade Kirigakure and the mission will be over. An awkward silence filled the area between the three friends. Hinata returned to eating her bowl of ramen, Shikamaru started to pick at his food, and Naruto simply stared at his empty bowl. The server at the stand delivered another bowl of ramen to Naruto, prompting him to break the silence. Are you all worried about the mission? He asked. Worried? Hinata turned her attention to the blonde. Well, yeah. We're invading the village of Kiri after all. And we're going against the Mizukage. Naruto said with a sigh. Are you worried? Shikamaru asked. Not really. Kinda. I mean, I don't know. Naruto sighed once again. I think there's a chance this could be one of the biggest, most important missions of our life. This is going to be really dangerous. So yeah, I guess I am worried. He then proceeded to shake his hand. But if we succeed, we change history for both the hidden village and the entire country here, and this land needs change badly. I'm a bit worried, but also a little excited. I think there's a good chance we could end up doing something really good for the world here. That's true. Hinata nodded her head in agreement. If the Hyuga were being honest with herself, she would admit to being very worried about the mission. While her confidence was indeed improving, this mission was a daunting task with some dangerous implications. Invading another hidden village was something she had not anticipated to do when she signed up to be a shinobi. However, Naruto was right, this was something that could do a lot of good for the world. Naruto, you said you wanted to bring peace to the elemental nations, right? That's what your goal is when you become Hokage? Shikamaru spoke up. Naruto nodded, prompting him to continue. Then let's start with this mission. Let's create peace for Mizu no Kuni. He then looked the Uzumaki directly in the eye. And I want this to continue from here. The day you become Hokage. I want to be at your side in some way. I want to be doing whatever mission I can do to bring peace. Wherever you need me to be, whatever you need me to do. I'll do anything. Shikamaru. Naruto proceeded to smile at his friend. I mean it. He continued. I won't get over that mission, I don't think. So I want to make sure that not a single place in the elemental nations will go through something like that ever again. I'll be by your side too, Naruto-kun, Shikamaru-kun. Hinata spoke up as well. I think we can do it. I think we can do anything if we have each other. Hinata-chan. Naruto was beaming now as he got up from his chair and pulled his two friends out of their chairs and into a hug. We'll do it. We're going to change this world for the better. The three members of Team 3 stayed in their group hug for a few more moments. The moment was ruined, however, as the group heard a loud noise that sounded like a rumbling stomach. The trio broke apart. Shikamaru was looking a little bashful while Naruto and Hinata were looking at him in surprise. Shikamaru-kun, was that you? Hinata asked. Yeah. He replied with a shrug. What, if you haven't been paying attention, I've barely eaten my food. I'm just picking at it. Why? Naruto nearly shouted. It's ramen. I know it's not Ichiraku's or anything, but it's still the food of the gods. Eat. I wasn't in the mood when we arrived," Shikamaru admitted with another shrug. Naruto proceeded to return back to his seat at the stand and started to slide Shikamaru's bowl of ramen closer to his chair. "Well, if you aren't in the mood then dash." Shikamaru's hand immediately reached for his bowl and grabbed it back. "Hey, you heard my stomach just a moment ago. I'm hungry now, thank you very much." Another moment of silence filled the area. The silence was broken a few seconds later by the sound of the three friends laughing. The rest of the time at the ramen stand was filled with more standard, light-hearted topics. The three friends would chat and laugh about anything to come to mind. For the first time since Shikamaru's return, they acted like the same group that they were back in Konoha. After finishing their meal and paying their bills, Naruto, Hinata, and Shikamaru got up from their seats and prepared to walk back to the training ground to meet with Jiraiya. Just as they were leaving, however, Shikamaru noticed a person with long, black hair walking down the street with a troubled look on his face. He recognized him immediately and stopped walking. "You alright, Shikamaru?" Naruto asked as he and Hinata stopped to look at their friend. "You two go on without me. Tell Jiraiya-sama I'll take a rain check and come by tomorrow. I'm going to go meet up with somebody for a little bit," Shikamaru said as he started to walk off towards the other person. Naruto and Hinata stayed standing, watched their friend walk off. It took them a few moments before they finally returned back to walking towards the training ground. "Haku!" Shikamaru called out. The Yuki clan shinobi turned around and saw the Konoha shinobi approaching him. Haku put a smile on his face as he waited for him to catch up. It only took a few seconds before they were both walking side by side. "How are you doing, Shikamaru-san?" Haku asked politely. "I saw you with your friends just a moment ago at the ramen stand." "I'm good. I'm doing better," Shikamaru answered with a slight smile. "You should have stopped and said hi. They would have liked to see you. You all were hugging. It felt like I would be ruining a moment," Haku replied. "Oh." Shikamaru looked a little embarrassed at the comment. He coughed a little awkwardly before continuing to speak. "Well, you might want to come by sometime and see them. They'd definitely appreciate that." "I probably will," the Kirigakure rebel replied with a nod. "Glad to see you are in better spirits, Shikamaru-san." I don't know if I fully am," he admitted with a sigh. "Just starting to get my mind thinking on other topics." "That's good at least. It means you are on the road to moving on," Haku said with the same, fake-looking smile. "How's everybody?" Shikamaru asked. "Anoka has gone through the most out of everybody on the mission, so she's fine. As is Kirikuin. I talked to them both not too long ago," he answered. "Suigetsu-san, not so much. He took the mission badly. He's not really talking to anybody and is just focusing on his training. I understand that mindset. That's how I was last night." The Konoha Chunin frowned in response. "And you?" "Me? I'm managing," Haku answered. "The invasion is approaching, so I've been focusing most of my energy on preparations for that." Shikamaru noticed Haku's smile seemed to twitch slightly with his answer. The Nara felt incredibly uncomfortable looking at his face. One of the things that he ended up enjoying about Haku was how genuine he seemed, even when he was lying to them and pretending to be a merchant. This was the first time he truly felt the boy was being fake, and it bothered him. "Haku, you can be honest with me, you know that? We were on the same mission together," Shikamaru told his friend. The Yuki clan shinobi's smile immediately dropped, and the troubled look returned to his face. He took in a deep breath before starting to talk again. "I'm okay, I'm not managing well at all," Haku admitted with a quiet voice. I really wish Zabuza-sama was not on his mission, because I need to talk to him about the mission and figure out he handles dealing with something like this." Haku dash. but he's on a mission that he is currently leading. Haku continued to speak, ignoring Shikamaru. And he's going to succeed, because he's Zabuza-sama. He's a qualified, capable shinobi that any person would be lucky to have led their team. He's somebody worthy of respecting. Unlike me, who completely ruins a mission and gets innocent civilians killed. Shikamaru's eyes widened at Haku's statements. Haku, you can't say dash. And that wasn't the first mission I had been assigned like that. Haku interrupted the Chunin. I've led group missions before. I've done tracking jobs, I've gone undercover, have done assassinations, and I've done some incredibly dirty things whenever Zabuza-sama and I would receive a client when we were missing ninja. I've done so many things that I should have been prepared for anything. So how did I mess that mission up that badly? The Nara's eyes were filled with sympathy, Haku dash. And one of them was a cousin. There was a Yuki clan member in that group. And another was an 8-year-old girl. I should have been able to save them, but I couldn't. I don't know what happened. I am a horrible shinobi, and I really wish Zabuza-sama was here. The Yuki clan shinobi was now openly sobbing in the streets of the village. Things were so much easier when I was just his tool. I never screwed anything up like this. Shikamaru quickly rushed over to the rebel and hugged him. Haku returned the hug and continued to cry into his chest. They remained like this for a few moments, ignoring the looks of civilians walking through the village. Shikamaru stayed quiet until Haku's sobbing started to quiet down slightly. He then opened his mouth to speak. I talked to a few people. My friends and Jiraiya-sama. Nothing we can do will ever make the memories go away. But what we can do is focus on the future and try to get stronger. To make sure things like that never happen. Shikamaru told him. Haku did not immediately reply, he continued to sniff from the tears. This prompted the Nara to continue speaking. We're getting close to the end of the war. That's what we need to think about now. And when Kirigakure and Yagura are defeated, peace can return to the land and people won't have to go through the fear of executions and death like they have been. That's what's important. That's what we need to be thinking about. Shikamaru took a deep breath in to collect his thoughts before continuing to speak. I don't know if those thoughts help you, but they've been helping me all day. They've been what everybody is telling me, and what I'm now telling myself. And I think they are what Zabuza would be telling you if he were here. I suppose. Haku responded with a quiet voice. I mean it. Shikamaru said it. Haku, you are a great shinobi, and you have good leadership skills. I saw that when the village of Kibo was invaded the first time, and I saw it again when you led our team towards the village of Chishio. You're strong. You're capable. You're a good leader, and I would still follow you in a mission. Thank you. Haku rubbed his eyes with the sleeve of his kimono. It took him a few moments before he finally looked at Shikamaru's face. Haku's eyes were red from his tears. I'm sorry about that, by the way. I don't normally cry like that. Don't apologize. Shikamaru shook his head. By the way, don't feel like you have to go to Zabuza. When he's not here, you can talk to somebody else about you are thinking about. Just don't bottle them up. He proceeded to frown as he recalled how he had felt the following night, when he had trained while his friends were asleep. It doesn't do you any good. You are a good friend, Shikamaru-kun. Haku smiled at the Chunin. Shikamaru noticed the change in honorific and smiled back at him. If you wish to get stronger yourself, by the way, I was going to probably get some training done. The Konoha shinobi mentioned. If you want, we can train together. Want to spar? Haku nodded his head immediately. The remaining days in the village of Kibo went by quickly. With exception of moments to sleep, eat, and to take brief breaks, all shinobi focused every moment of their time to training and improving on their abilities. All shinobi were prepared for the upcoming invasion. Shikamaru had spent his time with his team, Jiraiya and Haku, improving his abilities and his stamina. He continued to strengthen his usage of fire-style ninjutsu, as well as his clan's shadow abilities. In addition, he managed to do just as Jiraiya had predicted and managed to learn the Earth-style Swamp of the Underworld in 2 days. Upon learning it, the Nara began making plans with how to use it properly, and to work out strategies in order to improve his overall tactical abilities regardless of any scenario he finds himself in. Hinata continued to train with her team, Jiraiya and Anoka, and had managed to develop her water-style ninjutsu to a much higher level. With constant focus and exercises, she managed to increase her reserves to a point that she was able to use the water-style giant vortex jutsu. With sessions with Anoka, she managed to improve her vision. She felt confident in her ability to provide long-range support during the mission, and felt comfortable that she would be able to see any potential threat and be able to respond appropriately. Naruto's training with his team, Jiraiya and Anoka, led to him developing his skills with the Rasengan in further detail. He acquired the ability to use the jutsu as a projectile and learned how to make the Otama Rasengan. He also learned how to make a few more seals with Anoka and Jiraiya, and found his ability to create seals in combat was developing at a faster rate. He had no doubt he would be able to use both the Rasengan and his Fuinjutsu during the mission, and would be able to be a powerhouse when necessary. All shinobi in the village, Dosu, Haku, Anoka, Mizora, Suigetsu, and more, trained to the best of their abilities. None trained harder, however, than Tsurumi Mei. 3 days had passed since she sent out Zabuza, Kakashi, Anko, Chojuro, and Jinin on a mission to wipe out me and I Maimason. On the 3rd day, a small brown dog wearing a Konoha forehead protector arrived in Kibo and rushed over to her office. "So, you are telling me the mission was a success?" she questioned. The dog nodded his head. "Yes, ma'am. All operatives in the organization were destroyed. Jinin-san got a little wounded, but nothing that prevents him from functioning. Kakashi, along with the rest of the team, are all waiting at the base for you to arrive. They will join up with you then." "Good. Tell them to be on the lookout for us and to get ready. As soon as we arrive, they will join up with us. There won't be any waiting, we'll match straight to Kiri," Mei stated. "Understood. I will let them know," the dog replied before leaving the room. Mei was left alone. The woman looked out the window and looked to the east of the village. In just a few moments, she'll call forth every shinobi in the village, and they will march forward towards Kirigakure. The mission that they had been planning for years will finally take place. If there is a god out there, please, be at our side. Mei silently prayed. For now is the time when the fighting shall end. Now is the time when we reclaim Kirigakure. The Kirigakure Civil War, after over a decade of violence and bloodshed, was about to come to a close. Chapter 47, The Invasion of Kirigakure. "They're here." Zabuza spoke up to his team. Zabuza, Kakashi, Anko, Jinin, and Chojuro had been waiting at the former base of operations of me and I Maimason since the moment they wiped out the organization. The mission went well with all members of me and I Maimason dead. There was now no possible chance of Kirigakure would be alerted of the invasion. The team had remained at the base to rest while waiting for Mei to lead the army to Kirigakure. Their wait was now over. "It's about time," Jinin declared as he stood up. "It's been boring sitting here waiting. It's time to get in on the action already." After collecting their tools and weaponry, the group of 5 left the hideout and wandered outside. As Zabuza had stated, Tsurumi Mei was there waiting for them, along with the army composed of the Konoha shinobi led by Jiraiya and her rebel shinobi. "Heh." Zabuza grinned at the sight of all of the shinobi. "Just looking at the size of the group, it feels like we have an actual army." "We do," Mei replied with a smile. "We have an army with its sole goal being free Kirigakure and Mizu no Kuni from oppression." There was no time to waste. Zabuza, Kakashi, Anko, Jinin, and Chojuro joined the army and marched out with them. They all continued on their path towards Kirigakure. The march was uninterrupted with no conflict from Kirigakure shinobi trying to slow them down or lower their numbers. Mei's army continued to march until nightfall, where they set up camp in various caves. Guards were set to keep watch at night and alert the army in case of any possible attack. Mei, Jiraiya, Utakata, and Zabuza's group for the Me and I Mason mission were sitting in a cave to themselves. They sat around a small campfire and were discussing details of the invasion with each other. To put it simply, each shinobi has been assigned to different groups with different agendas in mind. As I fill you 5 in, I will inform you all what group you are to be a part of. Mei stated. Before that though, I would like to preface my orders with some general comments. I realize that not every person in Kirigakure at the moment is in compliance with Yugura's orders. Some of them are probably forced into whatever actions they take. Therefore, I will allow you all the option to spare any and all shinobi that you feel is not a danger to the mission. However, use common sense with your judgments. If you can tell that their allegiance is with the current regime in Kiri, and I'm pretty certain you all will be capable of doing that, then kill them. Understood? Zabuza, Kakashi, Anko, Jinin, and Chojuro nodded their heads in understanding. Good. Now, onto the invasion. The first order of business is an attack on the gate of the village. We will have one squad be the ones creating an entrance to the village through the gates so the rest of the invasion can take place. Once the rest of the squads have entered the village, the group will then be assigned the role of making a distraction and drawing as much attention to them, while the rest of the forces can accomplish their missions. The rebel leader stated. She then turned to face Jiraiya. As a result, this force is the largest. Most of the Konoha shinobi on the mission will be assigned to this task. Therefore, Jiraiya will be the active leader for this group. She then turned her attention to Chojuro. Chojuro, I am assigning you to this group. As just stated, Jiraiya is your leader. Follow his orders. Oh, of course. Chojuro bowed his head in respect to both Mei and Jiraiya. Upon entering the village, there will be 4 more groups of shinobi deployed. Mei continued. The first of these groups will be sent into civilian quarters with the goal of taking out the members of Kirigakure's political regime. Quite a few of them are civilians with political power, but a few of them are indeed qualified shinobi. All targeted on this list, however, are people that have played a major role in developing the fear of those with Kekei Genkai. The goal of this group is to make sure that any potential political threats to Kirigakure die to prevent further fighting and another potential uprising. The rebel leader proceeded to shake her head. None of you are assigned to this mission, but I was just informing you of its existence. There are 2 squad leaders for that group, Uzumaki Anoka and Yuki Haku. Haku and Anoka, ha. Zabuza frowned at the name. He had heard of the failure to rescue the hostages upon reuniting with the army. He had also briefly talked to Haku about the mission and got to see the boy's mental state. Are they all right? Will they be able to handle the mission? I trust they will be able to. Besides, there is one target on their list that I felt they would have invested interest in hunting down. Mei answered with a shrug. Moving on, the second group will head into the village and head to the headquarters of the 7 Swordsmen of the Mist. Once in there, you will take the building over and rout the shinobi inside. She turned her attention to Zabuza. Zabuza, you are leading the group, if that is fine with you. Without waiting for her response, she turned to face Anko. Anko, you are also going to be in this group. Understood. Anko said. Heh. Zabuza smirked in response. I presume I'm also going to take back the 2 swords, right? Shibuki and Nuwabari? Yes. Mei replied. That also means that Jinpachi and Kushimara must die. Jinpachi. Anko scowled at the name of the member of the swordsmen. This'll be revenge for that time in Kibo. His ass is dead. Agreed. Zabuza's smirk turned into a malicious grin. It's time those two swordsmen that followed that traitorous Mizukage get the deaths they deserve. Mei frowned in response to Zabuza's comment, but she then turned her attention to Kakashi. Kakashi, I would like you to lead the third group. Your group's mission is to infiltrate the Mizukage mansion and take over the building. That also includes taking out every shinobi inside. She then turned her head to face Jinin. Jinin, you will in this group as well. Taking over the mansion? Jinin repeated her order with a grin. There's going to be a lot of shinobi in there. That's fine with me. While I am fine with that mission and will do it accordingly, does this imply that I am taking on the Mizukage? From everything I had been informed of the mission, I had assumed you wanted that task. Kakashi said. No, you are right. The final group that will be led into the village is going to be led by me, and will only include Utakata and Uzumaki Naruto. Mei mentioned. I've confirmed with our spies and from my own memories of Yagura, I know precisely where he will be in the village. It's not going to be in the mansion. I know where Hold up. You want to have my student to go against the Yonde Mizukage? Anko interrupted the rebel leader. Her eyes were narrowed at the woman. What the hell do you think you're thinking? Naruto's a member of my army. Mei declared, speaking over the Konoha Jonin. She returned her glare with one of her own. I decide what he is going to do. You have no say in the decision. Bah. Anko nearly hissed as she began to leak killing intent. Leader of the rebels or not, and regardless of success, if Naruto dies tomorrow, because of your decision, I am going to fucking murder you. Naruto-san won't die. Utakata spoke up for the first time since the meeting began. If it eases you, Anko, I have already talked to Jiraiya here, and he feels my decision is fine. Naruto will be safe. Mei replied with a small smile. I'll make sure of that. My threat still stands. The Konoha Jonin stated. As does my statement. Mei stated. She then proceeded to stand up. Regardless, you have all been informed of all the plans. It's time we all go to bed and get rest. Tomorrow is going to be an important day. Everyone nodded in understanding. One by one, people began to make their own sleeping arrangements amongst the rest of the army. In just a minute, Mei and Utakata were left by themselves. Anko-san seems to care about Naruto-san a lot. Utakata noted. She is his Jonin sensei, Utakata. Mei informed him simply. This caused the Jinchuriki's eyes to narrow, causing Mei to shake her head. I understand the circumstances behind your distaste for the teacher-slash-sensei relationship, but you must understand that your situation was an anomaly. Most people have close relationships with their sensei. Naruto and Anko are no exception. They are very clearly close. I understand. Utakata sighed in response. The young man had no clear desire to think much about his own circumstances. Speaking of the sensei-slash-student thing, where is Hataru? You left her at Kibo, correct? Mei questioned. Yes, she is there. Utakata nodded his head. I wanted her to be safe. It took a while to convince her to agree with my logic, but it is for the best she is there. I do not think she is at a level where she would survive this war. That's a wise decision. Interesting to see that you care about her survival so much. The rebel leader noted with a playful smile on her face. Of course I do. I don't want her to die. Utakata replied. She's special to me. I know she is. Mei resisted the urge to laugh at his response. She failed to resist, however, and let out a small noise that sounded like a giggle. Utakata noticed and frowned on his face. Again, you misinterpret our relationship, Mei-san. The Jinchuriki stated firmly. I don't know, Utakata. Mei mentioned, letting out another giggle. I'm familiar to the feeling. I know the signs. Even if you aren't aware of the feelings yet, I can tell they are there. And I'm pretty certain that maybe sometime after this war, something may develop between you two. Utakata gave no verbal reply. A small, pink tint developed on his cheeks. Mei, taking this as confirmation of her theory, proceeded to laugh. The Jinchuriki proceeded to frown in response, but realization came over his face as he started to piece information together based on the past conversations he had been having with the leader of the rebels. Did you have those feelings you are talking about the Yondae Mizukage? He decided to question. Mei proceeded to stop laughing. The woman looked at him with a completely neutral, emotionless expression. And what would make you think that? She asked. Just piecing some things together. You seem quite certain in your theory that he is being controlled, and don't want to kill him. You seem to hold him in respect and seem to frown whenever somebody insults Yugura too much. Plus, you two had some degree of a relationship with each other. You said, regardless of what your spies told you, that you knew where he would be in the village. Utakata explained with a shrug. I'm not judging or anything. I was just curious. Well, to put your curiosity to rest, I can answer with a no. I have no feelings for the Yondae Mizukage. Mei declared sharply. All right. Utakata nodded his head in understanding before starting to walk away. You're right though, we should be getting sleep. With those words, Utakata walked off. Mei remained by campfire in the cave before setting up her sleeping arrangements there and laid down by the fire. She stared into the fire as she recalled memories of years ago. Hi. So, we are teammates, huh? Mei held out her hand, smiling brightly. Nice to meet ya. To her surprise, the gray-haired boy she had introduced herself to stepped back. He had a small blush on his cheeks and wasn't looking her in the eye. Huh, what did I say? She blinked in confusion. Hey, you gotta be patient with him. The kid here doesn't do good with strangers. A third voice said. Mei turned her head to face their third teammate, a boy with blue-colored skin that was slightly tall for his age. He had a cocky grin on his face, which showed off his shark-like teeth. Shy, huh? Mei asked. Course he is. The kid's horrible with meeting people. Then again, he's not much for conversation even when he does know them. Am I right, little turtle? The boy with shark teeth questioned with the same grin on his face. Shut up, Kisame. The gray-haired boy mumbled under his breath. And he speaks. I'll be damned. The other boy, Kisame, proceeded to laugh. He was then elbowed in the stomach by Mei, causing him to choke. Ack. What was that for? Don't be rude to him. Like you said, we're all a team. We're supposed to work together. No need to be mean to him. She stated. She then turned her attention back to the other boy and smiled. I'm Mei. Taromi Mei. What's your name again? Why you're the prettiest girl I've ever seen. He replied, his blush intensifying. Eh? It was Mei's to turn red in response. Ha! Oh, that's good, turtle. Kisame was now laughing loudly. You really aren't good with people, are ya? You can't just say something like that when you meet someone. The boy, nicknamed Turtle, continued to brighten in color. His cheeks were redder than Mei had thought possible for a person. Sorry. He mumbled as he looked down. Jay just opened my mouth to say something, and that came out. I didn't mean to dash. Well, I'm flattered. Mei replied. She shook her head, getting rid of the blush on her cheeks. The smile returned to her face as she held out her hand to Turtle again. But you still never answered my question. What's your name? The boy looked up, letting Mei get a glimpse at his pink-colored eyes as he finally stepped forward and shook her hand. It's Yugura. Well, Yugura, it's nice to meet ya. I know we're going to make an awesome team and even better friends. Mei replied. The boy, Yagura, responded back with the one whitest smiles May had ever seen in her life. May shook her head and let out a sigh. Utakata's question brought back a memory from 20 years in her past, of the time she had met Yagura for the first time. Doing her best to push the memory to the side, May closed her eyes in an attempt to get sleep. Despite her efforts, however, she still continued to think about Yagura and Utakata's question. No, I have no feelings for the Mizukage. He's ruined Kirigakure and this country. May thought to herself, as if answering Utakata's question again. Yagura, on the other hand. It took her a few more minutes before she was finally able to push all thoughts about Yagura out of her mind and concentrate on going to sleep. It's coming to end soon, Hinata told herself. Although she should be asleep, the Hyuga was having difficulties going to bed. After an hour of trying, she finally gave up and resounded to just sit down on the grass and watch the stars until she grew tired. She spent her time thinking about various topics. Wonder what life's like back in Konoha. How Nijinizan, Hanabi, and father are doing. She wondered. Will everything be the same when I get back? Or, will I even get back? Sure is pretty, huh? The Chunin nearly jumped out the sound of the voice. It took her a moment to calm down once the figure sat down and she recognized him as Naruto. She then proceeded to elbow him slightly. Why you scared me, Naruto-kun? She informed him. What? Was I able to sneak up on a Hyuga with their perfect vision? Naruto questioned with a playful smirk on his face. In fairness, I didn't have my Byakugan activated, Hinata said. And I'm totally not going to mention that when I retell the story, Naruto replied. The two Chunin laughed at Naruto's joke. Naruto proceeded to lie down on the grass, prompting Hinata to do the same. They stayed there together, looking at the stars in the sky. Neither of them was talking. While both of them were enjoying each other's company, they also had things that were on their mind in relation to the mission. So, what group were you assigned to again? Naruto asked the Kunoichi. I'm on the group that's going to take over the Mizukage's mansion, Hinata answered. A small smile developed on her face. Fun fact, Kurinai-san is going to be in my group. Really? Naruto blinked in surprise. Huh. I forgot that Kurinai was in the group to come over here. I haven't seen her in a while. I haven't seen her at all. It was a nice surprise running into her and finding out I was going to be working with her, Hinata said. Yeah. Naruto closed his eyes as he recalled what other arrangements he had heard. Shikamaru's on that mission in the civilian quarters with Anokane and Haku. And I know Dosa's on the mission with Aro Sennin to take on the guards around the village and get us a hole to bust into the village. And you are on the mission to take on the Mizukage, Hinata noted with a frown on her face. I am, Naruto said with a sigh. An uncomfortable silence fell over the two. Naruto was starting to think about his upcoming mission while Hinata was looking at him in concern. It took her a few more seconds before she broke the silence with a question. Naruto-kun, are you worried about tomorrow? She asked. I'm kinda, yeah, Naruto admitted with a sigh. I know I got Utakata and May backing me up on the mission, but I'm going to be fighting the Mizukage. And this could be the most important fight of my life. I know what you mean. Hinata let out a sigh of her own. This may be a start of a new era for Kiri. There's a lot of pressure on us for this mission. Yeah. Naruto frowned at the thought of the mission failing. I'm not even worried about my own life. It's just, yeah, this mission needs to be a success. This whole country is war-torn and that needs to change. He slammed his fists together. Yagura needs to go down. It was Hinata's turn to frown. I do agree, but. Hinata shook her head, trying to resist the urge to cry as images entered her mind. Please, be careful, Naruto-kun. Don't fight too recklessly. I don't want to find out that you died in battle. Naruto looked over at his new girlfriend and reached for her hand with his right hand. She immediately took his hand and held onto it tightly. I shouldn't worry. You're with the Mizukage and Utakata-san, and you are one of the strongest people I have ever met. But I can't help myself. Hinata's eyes closed as the tears she resisted to release were now starting to fall. I don't know what I would do if something were to happen to you. So please, be careful. Hinata-chan. Naruto tightened his grip on her hand. With his left hand, he gently pulled her head closer to him, allowing him to look into her tear-filled eyes. I promise. Nothing will happen to me. And I never go back on my promises. After saying those words, Naruto leaned forward and kissed her. Hinata's eyes widened in surprise, but soon relaxed and started to kiss him back. The tears stopped falling and her nerves started to calm down. It was a short but passionate kiss as the two broke apart after. Naruto had a small, infectious smile on his face that Hinata was quick to return. I believe you. You're always true to your word. Hinata said with a slight giggle. In the back of her head, nothing he could say would completely eliminate her fears. However, she did also know how capable and determined Naruto was. She had to trust him. You have to make that same promise too, though. Naruto informed her. Me? Hinata mumbled in response. The Uzumaki nodded as he reached into the pocket of his pants. He then proceeded to pull out a small sealing parchment. It was a plain seal that had the Uzumaki clan symbol drawn on it neatly. He handed it to her. I made this for. If you are ever in trouble out there, just reach for that seal and activate it. I wanted to be able to do something for you for tomorrow. Naruto told her. So, make the same promise to me too. Promise you'll be safe. Hinata looked back and forth between Naruto and the seal he had given her. After a few moments, she gripped onto the seal tightly and turned to face Naruto and nodded her head. I promise. Good. And that's a promise you can't break. Naruto stated as his smile turned into a grin. Hinata opened her mouth to respond, but a yawn proceeded to come out of her mouth. Naruto proceeded to chuckle as his girlfriend's face started to redden. Yeah, it's late. We really need sleep. He mentioned. I know. I had been out here trying to get tired to fall asleep. Hinata said with another yawn. Seems like it finally worked. Looks like it. Naruto chuckled in response. Were you having trouble sleeping? Too much was on my mind, I guess. Talking to you made me feel better. She said with a smile. Hope I can get some sleep now though. Hope so. Naruto replied with a chuckle. I'm still a little bit awake, so I might stay out here for just a bit longer. The two Konoha shinobi became quiet as they continued to lie on the ground, looking at the stars together. They didn't feel the need to say anything, they just enjoyed their company. Slowly, the two began to drift off to sleep. Hinata was the first to fall asleep, starting to breathe a little heavily. Naruto, whose eyes were starting to close, heard the breathing and looked over to her. He smiled to himself as he started to stand up. Probably not the best idea to sleep out here. We should be in our sleeping bags. Naruto mumbled to himself as he bent down to pick up Hinata. He picked her up bridal style and held onto her gently, making sure not to wake her up. Wait, where was your sleeping bag? What cave was yours in? Hinata, still asleep, didn't answer his question. She seemed more comfortable, however, and proceeded to position her body closer to Naruto's, causing him to blush. Not wanting to disturb her from her sleep and not knowing where to go, Naruto simply shrugged and walked over to the cave where he had his bag. He placed Hinata gently in his sleeping bag and then proceeded to lie down on the outside of his sleeping bag. Hope nobody misinterprets this. Naruto mumbled to himself while blushing. He didn't want anybody to think he was a pervert like Jiraiya. He quickly shook his head at the thought and turned his attention to his sleeping girlfriend. He proceeds to smile and bend over slightly, giving her a small kiss on the forehead. "Good night, Hinata-chan." Hinata smiled in her sleep. Naruto continued to look at his girlfriend with a smile of his own on his lips. A few seconds passed by before his facial expression turned serious. "Hinata, I'll be careful tomorrow. Just please, be safe as well," he thought to himself. With those thoughts in mind, the boy proceeded to close his eyes and drift off to sleep. Each member of the army woke up before sunrise. They made quick preparations and gathered all their weapons and tools before marching out. The members of the first group, led by Jiraiya, were taking the lead in the invasion. They were followed by the subsequent groups that would enter the village for their missions. As the army continued to travel through the swampland of Mizu no Kuni, the mist became thicker and thicker. For a period of time, it seemed as if it was impossible to see what direction they were walking in. This was, however, a good sign to the army. They were getting closer. It took them 2 hours to finally arrive at their destination. The mist finally started to clear up and the sun was beginning to rise, shining light onto the land and revealing a large gate. The gate was tall enough that nobody could see past it. The only things visible behind the gate were the large mountains in the distance. "That's the gate to Kirigakure." Naruto gulped. "So, it begins. Let the invasion commence." Mei spoke up, getting the attention of the entire army. She then pointed at the gate. "Jiraiya-san, begin your mission. Once you complete it, the rest of us shall begin ours." "Right." Jiraiya nodded his head in affirmation before turning his head back towards his shinobi. "All right, let's get a move on. Rout all shinobi that are standing guard. I'll be the one busting a hole through the gate. Let's move." With those words, Jiraiya charged forward, followed by the group of shinobi assigned to him. Naruto, along with the rest of the rebels, watched closely. Since most of the shinobi were from Konoha, Naruto recognized most of them, but one person stood out amongst the others. "You stay safe, Dosu." Naruto thought of his friend. The rest of the army waited approximately 3 minutes before a loud explosion could be heard. Instantly, a part of the gate that surrounded the village began to fall apart. There was now an opening that would be easy for the rebels to enter through. "There's our entrance," Mei declared as she turned her attention to the army. "All right, move out. Stick with your groups and follow the orders of your leaders. For Kirigakure. For a new future. For Kirigakure." The rebels chanted in near unison. Immediately, the army charged through the gate. They then split off into their separate groups, ready to complete their objectives. The invasion was now underway. Jiraiya-sama was not kidding when he said he could handle the gate by himself. Dosu realized. The bandage-wearing shinobi knew that Jiraiya was on par with his former master, Orochimaru, in regards to strength, but seeing how quickly Jiraiya managed to pierce through the defenses of the village impressed him. The man definitely deserved his status as one of the Sannin. Despite the entrance to the village being made, their mission was not over. There were plenty of Kirigakure shinobi that were supposed to be guarding the village from any and all intruders. It was the role of his group to kill them and keep them away from the other groups entering the village. With that thought in mind, Dosu, along with the rest of his group, charged towards various Kirigakure shinobi that were arriving to stop the army from entering. "Invaders! Kill them all!" One of the Kirigakure shinobi shouted as they charged forward. Dosu was the first of his squad to react as he quickly slammed his hand downward, causing the melody gauntlet on his arm to collide against the ground. Sound waves rushed forward on the ground, causing all of the approaching Kirigakure shinobi to fall to the ground. The other members of Dosu's squad were quick to react to Dosu's move. Various members jumped forward on the fallen Kirigakure shinobi and killed them. More Kirigakure shinobi began to arrive on the scene, but it was already too late for them. The other squads in Mei's army had managed to enter the village and make enough distance. They were already on their way to their individual missions. Now it's time for the second half of the mission. Make a distraction. Dosu realized. As more and more Kirigakure shinobi began to arrive, battles began to take place between them and the group of Konoha shinobi and Kirigakure rebels. Dosu was about to jump forward when he heard a loud, crackling noise coming from above him. He quickly jumped backwards in time to avoid a bolt of lightning that was aimed for him. The boy then jumped backwards again as a Kirigakure shinobi jumped forward towards him, a kunoichi wielding a staff. Dosu recognized her immediately. Tomo, correct? He questioned the shinobi. You were the leader of the Kirigakure shinobi that attempted to recruit Utakata-san. I was. And you were one of the Konoha trash that was trying to do the same. The woman, Tomo, nearly snarled. You all were lucky that the Rokubi Jinchuriki tired my men out, otherwise I would have slaughtered you all on the spot. A malicious grin developed on her face. However, you're on my home turf now, and there's nothing here to stop me from killing you now. Dosu-san. Dosu took a second to glance to his right and noticed his friend and training partner, Mizora, rush to his side. The kunoichi was gripping her side as she faced Tomo. If you're going to take her on, then let me fight by your side. She told him. Tomo's an A-ranked shinobi. It would be wise to take her on together. Understood. Dosu nodded his head in agreement as he gripped the melody gauntlet on his arm. That's precious. You two brats think that you can take me on? I fought in the Third Shinobi World War, and have faced much shinobi with more experience killing than you two have been alive. And I'm just a few more years away from becoming an S-ranked shinobi in the bingo book. She declared as she gripped onto the staff in her hands. And you're surrounded. There are thousands of Kirigakure shinobi here, prepared to kill all of you rebels. They'll keep your comrades busy. There'll be no interruptions. I'm going to kill you both right here. You talk a lot. Dosu noted. Do you just enjoy the sound of your voice? Brat. The woman's eyes lit up and raged slightly at the disrespect in Dosu's tone. Still holding her staff with her left hand, she began to make a series of one-handed signs with her right hand. It's a legitimate question. I've never known why so many shinobi like to chat when they fight. Dosu replied. His eyes narrowed on the Kirigakure shinobi in front of him, waiting for her to make the first move. So, enough talk. Let's just get to the point. Tomo's response was to release a large lightning bolt from her right hand directly towards Dosu and Mizora. Their fight was now officially underway. So which direction are we heading towards? Utakata questioned. You are positive he won't just be at the Mizuki's mansion? The small group of Mei, Utakata, and Naruto were quick to sneak off upon entering the village. They began to move through a remote section of the village, one with very few buildings. It appeared as if there were only civilian houses in the area they were at. Yagura was somebody who never liked being around too many people at once. He had a particular hangout spot where he would spend all of his time when he could, and he often said when he had the money, he'd build a house there. There's no doubt in my mind that's where he would be. Mei answered. You are certain of this? Utakata continued to question. I'm pretty certain that the Yagura that's currently the Mizuki is not the one you apparently knew when you were in Kiri. He may not have that same attachment to this land you speak of. Before Mei could answer his question, a group of 4 Kirigakure shinobi jumped in front of them. Each of them were armed with swords. One of them quickly rushed forward and tried to attack Mei, but she reacted first and dodged. She then positioned herself directly in front of the man before making a single hand sign. Boyle style, skilled mist technique. Mei quickly released a cloud of mist directly in the man's face. The man immediately screamed as the mist began to slowly melt his skin. Within seconds, the screaming stopped as his body fell to the ground with his entire head melted off. That's what Mei can do. Naruto's eyes were wide in surprise. His attention was turned away from Mei, however, as one of the Kirigakure shinobi attempted to strike at him. The blonde sidestepped the attack before extending his hand out, creating a Rasengan in his hand. He then jumped up and slammed the sphere into the shinobi's body, causing him to scream in pain. Within a few seconds, the combined impact of the jutsu and being slammed into the ground caused him to die almost instantly. Mei and Utakata proceeded to rush forward to the two remaining Kirigakure shinobi. The leader of the rebels used her mist technique once again, melting off the face of one of the shinobi, while Utakata opted to simply use a kunai and slit the throat of the other shinobi. Both shinobi's bodies fell to the ground. "So that takes care of them," Mei commented. Shun then turned her attention back to Utakata. "Now, as I was saying earlier, while I know that this Mizukage is not the Yagura I knew, I like to believe that there is some of the Yagura I knew in him. I could be wrong, but I doubt it. I'm positive he'll be there." "If you say." Utakata shrugged. "It wasn't his call anyway. Lead the way." With those words, Mei continued to rush forward through the remote area of Kirigakure as Utakata and Naruto followed, preparing to take Yagura on whenever they arrived. "Remember the targets on the lists," Anoka informed her squad. Haku and Anoka led their squad, a small group of 15 shinobi, into the civilian quarters of Kirigakure. Each member was taking looks at sheets of paper, identifying different houses and apartments to enter and the names and appearances of their targets. Shikamaru sneaked into a building and entered an apartment that was identified on his personal list. He creeped his way to the bedroom and found a middle-aged woman, sleeping peacefully in her bed. The Konoha Chunin took a look at his paper again to verify the identity of the woman. Everything matches up, he quickly realized as he pulled out a kunai. His eyes narrowed on the sleeping woman as he approached her. She's one of the heads of the civilian council and is in charge of almost all economic activity in Kirigakure. And through her influence over the marketplace, both in this village and in Mizu no Kuni, has helped spread the fear-mongering against those with Kekei Genkai. With that thought in my mind, Shikamaru brought the kunai down to her throat. She died instantly, her sleep turning into a permanent rest. The Konoha Chunin quickly left the building and planned to rush over to his next target. Before he could move, however, he was stopped as he saw Suigetsu, one of the shinobi that was assigned to his squad, get tossed out of a building. Shikamaru quickly rushed over and caught him, preventing him from making contact with the ground. Suigetsu was still alive, but he was bleeding heavily with large, open cuts on chest and stomach. Fuck. Suigetsu hissed in pain. "Take it easy, Suigetsu. I'm going to need to get you to medical," Shikamaru told the Kirigakure rebel as he began to look through the area for the other members on their squad. "Where's Kiri?" Shikamaru quickly spotted the medical shinobi and rushed Suigetsu to him. Upon dropping him off, his eyes turned back to the house that Suigetsu had been tossed out of. As soon as he turned his attention to it, he noticed a shinobi walk of the building, holding a large axe over his shoulders with his right hand. The Nara's eyes narrowed immediately. "Karatariki!" Shikamaru hissed at the sight of the man. On cue, Haku and Anoka left two separate apartment complexes, having made their own assassinations. Upon seeing the infamous executioner of Kirigakure, they quickly prepared for combat. Karatariki looked around, taking note of the various rebel shinobi around him. He then bit his thumb on his left hand, quickly made a series of hand signs, and slammed his hand down onto the ground. Instantly, after a poof of smoke appeared, a giant vulture appeared on the ground. He jumped onto the bird's back and was promptly taken up into the air. Despite being treated by Kiri and being in no condition to fight, Suigetsu noticed the man's actions and snarled. "Why you going to retreat again, coward?" he shouted, both in anger and in pain. "Retreat? As if." Karatariki scoffed. "I recognize you lot. You're the fucks that tried to stop my execution in Chishio. While that time I was fine with leaving, I'm not going to leave just so you all can have free reign of the village. You've invaded my village and are trying to kill innocent people here in the civilian quarters, and, as a Kirigakure shinobi, it is my duty to defend my village's people. Innocent? Shikamaru couldn't help himself, he had to voice his disgust. We aren't targeting innocent civilians. The only ones we are after are those who are involved with the warmongering, fear-mongering attitudes that have embraced this country. We're only after people like you. Yeah, right. Save me your holier-than-thou speech, brat. Karatoriki rolled his eyes as he gripped his axe. You don't understand anything. None of you do. You're trying to destroy one of the most powerful forces in the elemental nations. He then proceeded to make another hand sign with his left hand. And it's my duty to show you all the true power of Kirigakure. And here we are. Zabuza declared. Zabuza had led his squad of 40 shinobi through the village to the headquarters for the 7 swordsmen of the mist. He quickly busted the door down. Immediately upon entering the room, they were greeted by a group of 3 swordsmen. The swordsmen were initially surprised, but quickly gained their wherewithal and charged forward at Zabuza. The member of the 7 swordsmen of the mist, however, quickly reacted and blocked the attacks of all 3 shinobi with his Kubikiribocho sword. Fire style, Hellfire Rain. Anko, after channeling her chakra to surround herself and resemble flames, made a clapping gesture and formed fireballs within her hands. She quickly tossed them at the 3 swordsmen. They were unable to react and were hit with the flames, causing them to scream in pain. Seeing an opening, Zabuza quickly swung the Kubikiribocho, cutting through all 3 shinobi and killing them instantly. With the shinobi in the entrance gone, Zabuza's squad were now given access to the building. The entry room was a plain room that resembled a dojo of sorts with 3 hallways, one to the left, one to the right, and one directly in front of the entrance. Zabuza quickly turned his head towards his squad and began pointing. This half will take the hallway to the left, he declared, gesturing to 19 of the shinobi. He then gestured to the other 19. You all will take the hallway on the right. Rout all shinobi you come across. If they are in this building, they have taken up the sword and sworn their allegiance to a false Kirigakure. They deserve their death. He then turned his attention to the only person he did not call out, Anko. Anko-san and I will be taking the hallway in the center. Report back here in this center room upon completion of your mission. Use common sense to decide what to do from there. Understood. The shinobi declared before they rushed off into their respective hallways. In just a few seconds, Zabuza and Anko were left alone. They began to rush forward through the 3rd hallway. Any particular reason why it's just the 2 of us? She questioned him. I know what's down this hallway. Only 2 shinobi should be this way. Zabuza answered. And I believe you have an invested interest in making sure that one of them is dead. At the end of the hallway was a door. Zabuza opened the door and revealed a large room to the 2 shinobi. In the center of the room was a wooden floor that resembled a battlefield. Surrounding the battlefield were 7 pillars with names written on them. At the very end of the rooms were 7 hammocks that appeared to double as beds. What room is this? Anko asked her partner. This was an idea of the Shodai Mizukage. Zabuza answered. There was a hint of sadness and nostalgia in his tone of voice, as if being in this room brought back both happy and sad memories to him. The idea was to gather the 7 best swordsmen and put them together. They would live together in one room and train together at all times. They would thrive off competition and push each other to be the best in the name of Kirigakure. That's an idea you tossed away. Zabuza and Anko looked towards the hammocks in the back. Sitting up from 2 of the hammocks were 2 shinobi. The first was a tall, thin, gangly man with long shaggy blonde hair. He wore an ANBU mask over his face, and had bandages over his neck. He wore a black sleeveless shirt with matching black pants, and was gripping a long sword. The second man, however, was someone that Anko instantly recognized. She grits her teeth at the sight of him. Jinpachi! She hissed. The swordsman appeared the same as he did back in the village of Kibo. He had an irritated expression as he looked at Anko. Zabuza, you brought that bitch along with you? Why? I thought you would at least recognize the honor of this room and not bring an outsider into here. Jinpachi shouted at the Kirigakure rebel. Only a member of the 7 swordsmen of Kirigakure should be allowed to step foot into here. This room lost any sense of honor the moment you two remained in it. Zabuza snarled back in response. How harsh. Is that how you speak to your former comrades? The blonde-haired shinobi questioned him. You're no comrade of mine, courier or Kushimaru. The black-haired swordsman replied. You lost that title the moment you stayed loyal to Yagura. Stop talking shit about the Mizukage. Jinpachi hissed. I'm surprised you would object to him so much, Zabuza-san. Kushimaru commented in amusement. Yandame-sama has been the most rewarding person I have ever served. I have never been given the chance to fight and kill as much as I have under his command. You take enjoyment in it? Anko looked at the masked man in disgust. What kind of sick fuck are you? Save your breath, Anko-san. Zabuza informed her. These two were referred to as the heartless pair for a reason. They're selfish pricks who care about nothing other than their own interests and their bloodlust. He gripped the kubikiribocho in his hands tightly. More than that though, they are traitors that have spat on the legacies of every swordsman of Kirigakure before them. Such malice, Zabuza-san. Such anger. With the way you are talking about us, I'm sure your blood must be boiling. Kushimaru noted as he gripped his longsword. Why don't I just cut you open and see if your blood really is? I'd like to see you try. The rebel replied. Today's a new day for Kirigakure and its 7 swordsmen. His eyes wandered to the 2 swords the shinobi were holding. It's about time that the Shibuki and Nuabari blades were released from their horrible owners. We'll see about that. Jinpachi snarled as he got into position to charge at the shinobi. The only thing interesting about today is that a traitor amongst the 7 swordsmen is going to die, and I get to kill a bitch from Konoha as an added bonus. As if. Anko hissed as she channeled fire into the palms of her hands. We're almost there. Kakashi informed his squad. Keep up the pace, everybody. After a few minutes of traveling and sneaking through the village, Kakashi managed to lead his squad to the Mizukage's mansion in the center of the village. It was a cylindrical-shaped building with vegetation growing on the roof of the building. It was an incredibly tall building that seemed almost like a maze from the outside. Make sure to stay together with somebody. Kakashi informed his shinobi. Be careful inside. There will certainly be a lot of shinobi within here. Make sure to take out everybody. The shinobi all nodded as they managed to enter the building. Upon entering, every shinobi split off into various groups, searching the mansion for Kirigakure shinobi to take down. Hinata waited a few moments for the chaos to settle down slightly before deciding what direction to go down and with who. She made her decision, however, upon seeing Jinin walking up the stairs of the mansion. She quickly rushed over to her. Jinin-san, if you don't mind, I'll accompany you. Hinata requested. Jinin turned for a moment to look at her before smirking. Heh, come along if you want, kid. Curious to see if you managed to learn that jutsu I gave you while I was gone. Hinata and Jinin rushed up the stairs and reached the 3rd floor of the building. They then started to go down the hallway, looking for shinobi, while simultaneously preparing for an ambush. Hinata, having activated her Byakugan, was guiding them towards somebody. Still a way to go before anybody. These rooms are empty. She informed him. Damn, I picked the wrong hallway. Jinin grumbled. He then proceeded to chuckle as a thought entered my good. Good thing you're with me though, kid. I'd be wasting my time looking through all these doors. glad to be able to help," Hinata replied. The two shinobi continued to rush forward in the hallway, not finding a single shinobi to fight. After roughly a minute of searching, Hinata finally found a singular person with a high level of chakra in their body. Based on the amount of chakra she could see, she hypothesized that the person was a Jonin-level shinobi at least. "Found somebody. And he seems distracted," she told Jinin as she started to walk in front towards his location. "Perfect," Jinin declared. Hinata quickly rushed over to the door. As she approached the door, however, she began to hear a conversation in the room. "Sori-sama, please send somebody to help us. The village is being invaded, and we may need backup," the man requested. "Does your leader have anybody nearby?" Hinata wasn't certain who the man was talking to, as he was the only person in the room. To her surprise, however, a voice responded, "Relax, Unmo. Our leader has been aware of the situation in your village and thought that it would be a good time to enact some plans of our own. A group has already been sent. They should be there soon." "What?" Hinata's eyes were wide in surprise and slight fear. "I don't see another person in the room. Who's he talking to?" "Just keep fighting, Unmo. Make sure your village and the Mizukage does not die. I would really not appreciate hearing that he died," the voice replied. "This the room with the guy in it?" Jinin spoke up, getting Hinata's attention. She turned her head and noticed that he was now at the door. She then nodded her head. "Then let's wreck some shit." Jinin immediately bust the door down to the room. Both he and Hinata rushed in. Standing in the middle of the room was a middle-aged man wearing the Kirigakure forehead protector around his head like a bandana, covering up his lack of hair. His outfit was the standard Kirigakure shinobi uniform. His eyes were exceptionally round and he had black markings underneath them. Based on the conversation that Hinata had overheard, she could guess that his name was Unmo. Standing in front of him was some form of hologram figure. The figure was short and large and was wearing some type of cloak. Before Hinata and Jinin could get a good look at the image, however, it vanished. "What was that?" Hinata questioned. "TSK. You two heard things that you shouldn't have." Unmo shook his head in frustration. "Whatever. You're invading the village. You were bound to die. Who were you talking to? What was that thing and where did it go?" Jinin demanded. "I'm not inclined to answer the questions of traitors and Konoha trash." Unmo sneered. A smug grin developed on his face as he then made a singular hand sign. "The only thing that I can give you both is a rather painful death at the hands of Kirigakure." Upon finishing his statement, an explosive tag on the floor beneath the two shinobi activated. Both Jinin and Hinata jumped away in time to avoid the explosion. There was now a large, gaping hole in the ground. Both Hinata and Jinin got into position to fight, but her eyes widened in sight. All of a sudden, a massive group of high-leveled shinobi were now charging towards their general location. "Jinin-san, we are about to have a lot of company," Hinata informed him. "How many?" he questioned. "Hundreds," Unmo answered for her, his grin seemingly growing. "I just alerted all the shinobi to come here. Maybe a few of them will be stalled by some other rebel scum that's in the building, but I'm sure enough will be able to get here to join me." Hinata shook her head in frustration. Unmo was indeed right, she could see at least 100 different chakra signatures approaching them. What was worse was that the number was growing with each passing second. While there was a chance that some of the rebels were amongst the numbers and that they would fight with them, the sheer amount of Kirigakure shinobi that would be arriving at any moment was a scary thought to her. "Kid, I'll take care of the reinforcements," Jinin stated as he started to walk out of the room and into the hallway. Eh? Hinata blinked in surprise. "Jinin-san, you can't do that by yourself." "I won't. It's like he said, maybe some of the rebels will arrive too to help. I'll have backup." Jinin said with a confident grin. He pulled out a scroll, activated a hand seal, and spawned his sword, Kabutawari. He gripped the sword tightly. You just focus on killing this guy for now. Before either of the two could say another word, a group of 10 shinobi arrived in the hallway and rushed for the door. A few more shinobi were starting to join them. Jinin noticed them and got into a stance to fight. I'll take care of them. Just finish your guy off quickly and join me. He told her from the hallway. Understood. Hinata nodded before turning her attention to Unmo. You're going to regret that decision, little girl. The bald man said as he got into position to fight. I've been known to be particularly vicious when my opponent was a Konoha scum. Now that the reinforcements are focused on the traitor, I can dedicate all my attention to squashing a dirty leaf. We'll see. I'll have you know that I'm no dirty leaf. Hinata countered as she got into her gentle fist variant style. I'm a proud shinobi of Konoha with the will of fire. Unmo's response was to begin a series of hand signs. Their battle had now officially begun. We're here, Mei announced. Naruto and Utakata took the time to analyze the area where they were. There was an elaborate golden gate, with the phrase "You shall never die, for you shall remain in the hearts of all who inhabit the land" written on it. The ground was covered with a few dozen tombstones. The mist that had surrounded the village and kept it hidden from the outside world was thick once again in this area. In the distance, the 3 shinobi could see a small one-story house. This is slightly creepy, Naruto admitted with a shiver. Why would Yugura want to live out here? What even is this place? It's a cemetery for the most honorable and loyal people in the village. The previous Mizukages and the members of the 7 swordsmen of Kirigakure. Utakata answered. And the previous Jinchuriki of both the Sanbai and the Rokubi. Mei added. Naruto and Utakata faced her. Utakata, in particular, looked shocked at that revelation. I was unaware of that. He said quietly. Not many people know about that, but it's true. Yugura definitely knew that. She said with a frown. Many people don't know this, but Yugura was actually pretty spiritual. He never had the best of childhoods, so he preferred to be surrounded by the spirits of the most important people in Kiri. Since he was the Sanbai Jinchuriki, he felt comforted knowing that he was where the previous Jinchuriki were. A few tears were threatening to run down Mei's face, but she proceeded to shake her head and push them back before continuing to speak. When he was growing up, he would come out here and pray and ask for them to give him the strength to become a great shinobi like all the people buried here. He'd be the first to admit that he might be being stupid, and that there were no such things as spirits, but it was the only thing that comforted him for the first 8 years of his life. Didn't he have a family? Naruto questioned. Mei actually scoffed at Naruto's question. A family that casted him out the moment he was chosen by the Sandai Mizukage to be the Sanbai Jinchuriki, yes. A frown then developed on her face. No, he had nobody to actually support him and be with him for a while. The woman mumbled something to herself, but Naruto didn't bother to hear. He was deep within his own mind, thinking about the things Mei had just told him about the Mizukage. Myself, Hanin II, Rashi, Gaara, and now you Yugura. Naruto's eyes then wandered over to his fellow Jinchuriki. And maybe even you, Utakata. Does it always have to be like this? Does every Jinchuriki have to have the same type of childhood no matter what? There can be exceptions, but it's incredibly rare. Humans are selfish creatures, kid. The Kyuubi answered in his head. Naruto didn't respond to the fox. He simply shook his head. No, that's not going to how it is forever. I'll change that system. I promise that. So, I take it then, that the house in the distance belongs to Yugura now? Utakata questioned. Well, I'll say this, that house was under construction the moment Yugura became Mizukage. Mei replied. After a few seconds, the group continued to move through the cemetery. As they walked closer to the house in the distance, they noticed a silhouette of a person standing in front of it. Gradually, as they became closer, they saw more and more of the person standing there. It was a man that appeared rather short. His face still had a childish appearance to it, but the expression on his face showed the actual age and experience of the person. He had pink pupilless eyes with a stitch-like scar underneath his left eye. His gray, messy hair was being covered by the blue hat of the Mizukage. He wore a gray sleeveless shirt over mesh armor, and had a green poncho over his shoulders, covering his neck. He wore black pants with a green apron that seemed to cover them. He also had a staff attached to his back that had 2 hooks of different sizes on both ends of the staff. The side with the larger hook had a green flower placed on it. That's him. Naruto realized as they continued to approach him. That's Yagura. As they began to notice him, Yagura saw them as well. A smile appeared on his face as he started to walk closer towards them. Despite seeing it from a distance, the smile unnerved Naruto. While it did not appear forced, there was something off about it that rubbed him the wrong way. Well, I was wondering when you 3 would arrive. I was expecting this for a while now. He told them in an almost cheerful fashion. Why you expected us? Naruto's eyes widened at the statement. Hello Kyuubi Jinchuriki. He responded, ignoring his question. His eyes then moved to Utakata. Hello Rokubi Jinchuriki. He then turned his attention to Mei. His eyes narrowed slightly. And hello to you too, Mei-chan. It's been a while, huh? The smile on his face began to appear more malicious. Are you 3 prepared to die? Chapter 48, Early Victories in War. It's a legitimate question. I've never known why so many shinobi like to chat when they fight. Dosu replied. His eyes narrowed on the Kirigakure shinobi in front of him, waiting for her to make the first move. So enough talk. Let's just get to the point. Tomo's response was to release a large lightning bolt from her right hand directly towards Dosu and Mizora. Both Dosu and Mizora jumped out of the way, avoiding the lightning bolt. Tomo quickly rushed forward towards the 2 shinobi, gripping her staff tightly in her left hand. She jumped into the air and prepared to swing it at Dosu. Bit of a mistake, striking at me with a weapon when you are so close. Dosu thought to himself as he raised his right arm up to guard her attack. Dosu, get back. Don't let her hit you. Mizora hissed. It was too late, Tomo had already struck at him. The melody gauntlet on his arm blocked the staff, preventing her from directly hitting him. Dosu immediately prepared to release sound waves and attack her with them, but before he could channel the chakra and use his jutsu, a sharp jolt of electricity shot forward from Tomo's staff and rushed through his body. He immediately shouted in pain before quickly jumping away in an attempt to get away from her and hopefully end the pain. Dosu could feel little jolts of electricity running through his body, causing him to grit his teeth in pain, but the pain began to slowly fade away with each passing moment. What was that? He questioned Mizora. Before she could answer, Tomo let out a loud, triumphant laugh. Electricity, and a lot of it. The Kirigakure shinobi stated proudly as she gripped her staff tightly. I designed this thing based on my own chakra. I can send my chakra straight through it and cause it to electrocute anything it touches. Even the lightest of taps with this is enough to send incredible amounts of electricity into its target. TSK. It seems as if I can't use my sound-related ninjutsu as easily as I would normally like to. Intercepting a blow from her staff will just electrocute me before I can actually use the sound waves against her. Dosu realized. How unfortunate. Stay safe, Dosu. Just keep avoiding her. Mizora declared upon making a singular hand sign. Ninja art, hidden mist jutsu. A thick mist began to develop around Mizora's body. The mist began to slowly extend itself forward, heading directly towards Tomo's body. The woman smirked as she jumped away, avoiding the mist. She then jumped high into the air, above the mist. She quickly began her descent, preparing to strike at Mizora with her staff. The Kirigakure rebel moved away just in time, causing Tomo to strike the ground instead, creating a hole in the ground as a result of the impact. Mizora then made another hand sign, causing the mist she had created to start moving back, towards Tomo again. The loyal Kirigakure shinobi proceeded to jump into the air again to avoid the attack. "I'm not going to let your mist hit me," Tomo declared proudly. While still in the air, the woman proceeded to point her staff towards her opponents, lightning style, Reijiki. Tomo's staff started to glow a bright, golden color as a series of lightning bolts rushed forward from the staff's end towards Dosu and Mizora. The two shinobi began to avoid the subsequent lightning bolts. Each one left holes in the ground, destroying the swampland that they were using for a battlefield. With each lightning bolt released, Tomo's attacks began to get faster. One of her lightning bolts managed to hit the ground under Dosu's feet just as he was jumping away to avoid the attack. Although the attack did not cause him to get shocked, the resulting destruction on the ground caused him to lose his balance as he moved and forced him to fall to the ground, leaving him wide open. "Ha, sucker!" Tomo grinned as she finally began her descent back to the ground. Once again, she was preparing to swing her staff downwards directly onto Dosu's body. "Die. Won't be able to avoid this," Dosu cursed. His legs weren't moving as fast as they needed them to. He must have injured them slightly when the last impact caused him to fall down. Realizing this, he changed tactics and focused on his arms. Hopefully this works. Before Tomo could land her attack on him, he quickly slammed his right arm downwards, causing the sound amplifier on his hand to make impact with the ground. He then closed his eyes as he focused on channeling the necessary chakra. Sound barrier. The sound waves created from Dosu's melody gauntlet quickly surrounded him and formed a visible, white-colored protective barrier around him. Tomo's staff made contact with it, but was unable to pierce it and reach him. What the dash Tomo shook her head in frustration as she put more force into her attack. Various bolts of lightning were released in various directions due to the amount of force and chakra she was putting into the attack. Breakthrough already. While initially fruitless, Tomo's efforts appeared to make headway as the barrier around Dosu began to grow smaller as sound waves began to slowly dissipate. As the loyal Kirigakure shinobi was about to finally pierce his barrier, her arms were gripped by the mist clouds that Mizora had formed earlier, stopping her attack on Dosu. "What?" she hissed as she turned her head to face Mizora. The Kirigakure rebel was making a series of hand signs, causing more mist to rush forward toward the woman. Her entire body was grabbed by the mist before it was flung away from Dosu. With another hand sign, Mizora forced the mist to pin Tomo down to the ground. "Thank you, Mizora-san," Dosu told the rebel as he managed to stand up. "That intervention may have very well saved my life." "We're comrades, Dosu-san. No need to thank me," Mizora replied with a shrug. She was mostly only paying attention to the Kirigakure shinobi she had pinned on the ground. Now to end this before she can do anything else. With another hand sign, Mizora urged the mist holding Tomo down to begin suffocating her. Tomo's eyes widened as she began to feel herself unable to breathe. Mizora remained concentrated and tightened her mist's grip on the woman, intent on killing her as quickly as possible. Before the final blow could be dealt, however, a massive burst of lightning was shot forward from Tomo's body. Various bolts of scattered electricity left her body, forcing the mist away from her and causing it to vanish. The bolts then rushed at Mizora and Dosu at a rapid rate. The two shinobi weren't able to jump away time and took the attacks head-on. Both shinobi screamed in pain before falling to the ground in pain. Scattered shocks of electricity ran through their bodies as they attempted to get up. While they struggled to stand up, they were able to watch Tomo pull herself off the ground. The woman was breathing heavily and had a few scattered black markings over skin, but had that same, triumphant grin on her face. Thought you had me there, didn't you, Kawada? Tomo said Misora's clan name with a snort. I'm able to release lightning directly from body in all D directions at a rapid rate. It's powered off my own internal CH chakra network as opposed to the chakra for a single jutsu, so your pitiful mist cloud stood no chance to its force. You don't seem much better yourself though. Mizora commented as she finally pulled herself off the ground. The kunoichi felt her legs grow weak, but stayed strong, focused on standing. She then proceeded to help Dosu up before continuing to speak. You're panting and your skin doesn't look too good. It seems that a technique like that took a lot out of you. You're one to talk about weakness. Both of you are barely able to stay standing. Tomo snarled. I'm one of the strongest shinobi Kirigakure has ever seen. I'm an elite, loyal shinobi. Loyal to what? Dosu questioned. Tomo gave him a glare in response, which prompted him to continue. Your Mizukage is actively destroying Mizu no Kuni. Innocent people are dying all throughout the country. What good is loyalty when you pledge loyalty to a tyrant? What good is loyalty? Loyalty is all we shinobi have. Tomo growled. We are all tools for those that we serve. They give us purpose and a paycheck. In turn, we give them our entire being by fighting for their purposes. It's a mutual system that benefits all of us. She proceeded to shake her head, almost in exasperation. You're such a young brat. You haven't learned the one thing that all shinobi must realize: morality has no place in the shinobi world. You can't be bothered to be concerned about your ethics when your life is on the line. Loyalty is the only thing that actually matters. You stay true to your leader and do what they say. They pay you and ensure your livelihood in exchange for your service. It's the only constant in this world, and loyalty is the only virtue that matters. You're wrong. Dosu shook his head in response. Loyalty only matters if the person has given you a reason to be loyal. After spending years devoting his loyalty to Orochimaru, he knew that she was incorrect. She, like he used to be, was blindly loyal to her leader. As far as he believed, that was not a virtue that anybody should have. Don't lecture me, kid. I've known this truth about the world longer than you have been alive. She snorted in response. Brats like you two don't understand anything about the way world works, and it seems like neither of you will. You, Konoha trash, have a misguided view of loyalty. And you, Kawada, are an outright traitor. The loyal Kirigakure shinobi then raised her right hand into the air, as she began to channel chakra into her fingers. Brats like you just don't belong in the shinobi world, so it's about time you were both forced out of this world. Lightning style, Reijiki break. Tomo brought her hand down and pointed her index finger at her two opponents. Various bolts of electricity shot forward from her fingertip towards Dosu and Mizora. They proceeded to move away, avoiding the attack. Mizora, however, winced in pain upon doing so. Her legs were in a great deal amount of pain. Fuck, that was close. She mumbled to herself. Ha! Tomo laughed as she pointed her finger back at the kunoichi. As I said earlier, you're in worse pain than me. Your legs are acting up from my onslaught. It'll only be a matter of time before your body gives out, and you won't be able to dodge. The woman proceeded to release another set of lightning bolts from her finger directly towards Mizora. The kunoichi proceeded to jump away, resisting the pain in her legs and trying to keep herself standing. Tomo grinned as she watched the girl's facial expressions become more and more pained. Her laughter stopped, however, as she noticed Dosu approaching her. He swung directly for her with his melody gauntlet. She quickly intercepted the attack with her staff. Upon making contact with her staff, a jolt of electricity ran through Dosu's body, causing him to shout in pain. Ha! Did you forget about this? Tomo taunted the boy. Unlike last time, Dosu didn't try and get away from the electricity. Instead, while his melody gauntlet was clashing with her staff, he pulled through the pain in time to make a singular hand sign. The gauntlet proceeded to amplify the sound waves of the attack, and sent them towards Tomo's ears. Tomo let out a blood-curdling scream. The loyal Kirigakure shinobi kicked Dosu in the stomach, knocking him back and getting him and his sound waves away from her as quick as possible. Dosu attempted to pull himself up from the ground as more and more electricity was running through his body. His body was growing incredibly weak and, ultimately, gave up on him. He fell down again, unable to stand. From his position, however, he managed to look towards his opponent and get a glimpse of her condition. Tomo was breathing heavily and she was gripping her right ear with her right hand. Blood was coming out at a pretty rapid rate from both of her ears. Tomo's eyes were also hazy, as if she wasn't seeing properly. What did you do?" she hissed at him. Her legs were wobbling and her eyes were under a lot of pressure to see properly. "You used a lot more electricity and lightning in that attack. You used so much that I knew I could use those sound waves against you," Dosu admitted with a chuckle. The ears of a human body are important in ways most people aren't aware of. All of that concentrated sound is messing up more than just your hearing, you know? Tomo brought her hand away from her bleeding ear and took a deep breath in. A few seconds passed by before she felt her body relaxing to a degree. While her vision was still shaky, she felt herself able to move better. With that realization, she quickly charged forward at Dosu. "I don't know what else you did to me, but I don't really care. You're pretty bad off from all the electricity you allowed yourself to take. You should die with just one more blast," she shouted, gripping her staff tightly. Before she could reach Dosu, Mizora jumped in between the two shinobi. With the blind shinobi now standing in her path, Tomo turned her attention towards her and prepared to strike at her with her staff and release a blast of electricity into her body. Mizora managed to sidestep away from her attack with relative ease. She then, using her scythe, attempted to cut Tomo. The loyal Kirigakure shinobi jumped back, thinking she jumped away from the attack. To her surprise, however, she did not move far enough away fast enough. Mizora was able to deeply cut her left arm. She screamed in pain and was forced to drop her staff to the ground. "How? I dodged your attack." "I know I did," Tomo hissed, both in anger and in pain as her right hand was now gripping her left hand in an attempt to prevent too much blood from pouring out. "It's as I said earlier," Dosu spoke up, "the damage to your ears is affecting more than your sound. Damage to certain areas can lead to hallucinations and dizziness. Your ears are bad off, Tomo-san. You can't fight properly anymore." "What's that supposed to mean?" Tomo questioned. "I believe he's telling you to surrender to us if you want to survive this," Mizora said bluntly as she raised her scythe. "Or don't. It makes no difference to me." "Surrender? Survive?" Tomo repeated Mizora's words with a snarl. Her shaky vision grew red as killing intent began to leak at alarming rates from the woman's body. Tomo clapped her hands together as she proceeded to glare at both Dosu and Mizora. Almost instantaneously, her body began to get surrounded in electrical energy. Lightning was being emitted from her body. Tomo winced in pain with each passing second, but the pain didn't seem to bother her too much. "I don't need proper hearing or vision to kill you both. I'm an elite Kirigakure shinobi. I've fought in war and have killed thousands of shinobi. And I won't surrender to a bunch of snot-nosed, traitorous brats. What kind of technique is that?" Dosu mumbled to himself. Tomo had not heard his question, but decided to take the time to taunt and elaborate on her technique. "Anyway, this jutsu is based on the fighting style of the Yondaime Reikage. It's nowhere near as capable as his lightning armor or anything, but it definitely has some use." A malicious, bloodthirsty smirk developed on her face as she bent down, preparing to charge. "Now, die." The Kirigakure shinobi charged forward at Mizora, extending her fist to deliver an electrically charged punch at the rebel. Mizora was unable to jump out of the way in time, and was sent flying backwards into the ground. Electricity, once again, was rushing through her body. She struggled to pull herself off the ground, but Tomo was, once again, charging directly at her. Realizing that she had no time to jump away, the blind shinobi opted to make a hand sign, ninja art, hidden mist jutsu. Instantly, a thick cloud of mist surrounded Misora's body. Tomo continued to charge forward, either unaware or uncaring about the mist. As she charged forward, the mist grabbed onto her, preventing her from charging forward. "This won't stop me!" Tomo roared as she struggled to free herself. Mizora, in response, put as much chakra as she could into her jutsu, trying to keep the enraged woman constrained in her mist and potentially suffocate her. To her frustration, however, her efforts were not working. With each passing second, her mist was growing weaker. "Damn it. Come on, Mizora. Put your being into this. You can't die," she told herself. Dosa watched the two kunoichi struggle in their stalemate from his position lying down on the battlefield. He tried, once again, to pull himself up and help his comrade, but was unable to get the strength to do so. His attempts began to get more frantic as he noticed Mizora beginning to falter in her confrontation with Tomo, but they still proved fruitless. He wasn't going to be able to stand and fight back against her. "But maybe there's still something I can do," he told himself. Stopping his attempts to pull himself up, Dosa proceeded to raise his right arm upwards, as high as he could. He then slammed it down onto the ground, crushing Sound Wave. Dosa winced in pain, having put all the force possible in his body into slamming his arm into the ground. He managed to ignore the pain, however, as he channeled his chakra. Immediately, massive sound waves rushed forward through the ground directly towards Tomo. She felt the impact of the attack, causing her legs to become weak and for her to fall down slightly. In addition, the sound waves came with so much force that it managed to crack the ground directly underneath her, causing her to sink into the ground itself. For a moment, Tomo's attention was no longer on Mizora. What dash? Now. Mizora told herself. With a slight advantage placed on Misora's side, the rebel proceeded to channel the mist that was holding Tomo in place to compress solely on her neck. The loyal Kirigakure shinobi resisted instantly, diverting her attention back to Mizora and trying to push back against her attack. Lightning was starting to fly in random directions from her body as she tried to free herself from both the ground and the mist. Again. Dosa told himself as he proceeded to lift his arm once again into the air before slamming it back on the ground. Ignoring the pain again, Dosa released another burst of sound waves into the ground that charged directly for Tomo. With her body actually now partially in the ground, thanks to Dosa's last attack, the sound waves affected her more as they rushed through her body and struck her ears. She attempted to scream in pain, but now, Misora's grip on her neck was overpowering her. She attempted to struggle for a few more moments, but eventually, the struggling stopped. Her body stopped emitting electricity, and her body grew limp. Mizora snapped her fingers, causing the mist to dissipate. Tomo's body remained unmoving, stuck within the earth. The loyal Kirigakure shinobi was now dead. One of Yugora's strongest shinobi is dead. Mizora breathed heavily relief. Within seconds, Mizora rushed over to Dosa's body and attempted to pick him up. Due to her own exhaustion, she had difficulty lifting his body up. However, she managed to finally place him over her shoulders, and she started to walk off. "Mizora-san, you don't need to do this," Dosu informed her. "Put me down. And my body just needs a little more rest. I'll be able to move in a little bit." "Not happening," Mizora replied simply. "Need to get you to medical. This isn't a good place to be by yourself and injured." Dosa took the moment to look over his shoulder. For a moment, due to the conflict with Tomo, he had almost forgotten that there were other shinobi involved on the mission. There was scattered fighting between the various Kirigakure shinobi under Yagura, and the rebel shinobi, and the Konoha shinobi. All shinobi seemed focused on their own particular battles, and didn't try to intervene in other conflicts. Upon seeing the ruthless fighting, he knew that if even one loyal Kirigakure shinobi looked over and saw him, alone, trying to stand up, he'd be dead. "Thank you, Mizora-san," Dosa told the girl carrying him. Mizora proceeded to shake her head. "You don't need to thank me for anything. You risked your life for my village and country. I'm the one who should be thanking you." Both Mizora and Dosa remained silent as Mizora rushed him back to a medical unit stationed away from the conflict. Dosa realized that there was a high likelihood that, based on how drained he was physically and in chakra, that he would be out of commission for the rest of the mission. All he could do now was hope for the safety of his comrades and his friends. "Everybody. Naruto-san. I hope everything is going well for you all," Dosa prayed. "Hyah." Jinpachi shouted as she swung his sword downwards. Anko quickly jumped out of the way from the attack. Jinpachi's sword made direct contact with the floor of the room and created an explosion. Fragments of wood were scattered after the impact. "What did you say about maintaining the room's honor? Seems like you're intent on blowing it up." Anko sneered at her opponent as she clapped her hands together. "A room can be rebuilt. And this one needs one," Jinpachi replied with a snarl. "It lost its purity when you stepped foot in it." Anko gave no verbal response. She simply channeled the flaming chakra around her into fireballs in her hands. She then quickly tossed them forward at Jinpachi. The swordsman charged her once again, sidestepping to avoid her fireballs. He quickly reached her, raised his sword upwards, and swung down. Anko jumped away, causing his sword to collide again with the ground, creating another explosion and causing more wood to scatter into the air. The Konoha shinobi continued to jump back and place distance between herself and Jinpachi. She looked in the corner of her eye and noticed Zabuza and Kushimaru in a stalemate. Both swordsmen were swinging their swords, trying to land a single strike on the other. They were focused intently on their opponent. Seeing a possible opportunity, Anko channeled her chakra once again into fireballs and chucked a series of fireballs directly at Kushimaru's back. Before her attack hit him, however, the shinobi quickly turned her around and used his Nuabari longsword to slice the approaching fireballs in half, causing the flames to dissipate. He can swing that thing in a way that can cut through fire? Interesting, Anko noted. Kushimaru, seeing Anko intervene, quickly jumped away and placed distance between himself and Zabuza. He then quickly stabbed the floor of the room with his longsword. Longsword ninja art, earth spider sewing. Zabuza's eyes widened. Anko, jump. Both he and the Konoha Jonin jumped into the air just in time. A series of wires rocked forward from the floor and covered the entire room in a checkerboard pattern. Zabuza and Anko landed directly on top of the wires, making sure not to land on the floor in between the wires, and rushed over to each other's side. They both then turned to look at their opponents. Jinpachi had jumped over to Kushimaru's side. Both loyal swordsmen were also standing on top of the wires. "Whatever you do, do not step on the ground in between those wires," Zabuza warned the Konoha shinobi. "Unless you want your feet actually cut off." "I figured," Anko replied with a shrug. Before she could say anything else, Jinpachi and Kushimaru charged forward on the wires towards them. Kushimaru, being more agile, reached the two first and attempted to use Nuabari to pierce Anko's body. The Konoha shinobi quickly jumped back, making sure to stay on the wires. Kushimaru continued his offensive, however, and rushed her again, preparing to swing his sword again. Anko, however, stood her ground and made a singular hand sign. "Fire style, Great Dragon Fire Jutsu." Anko breathed out a massive fireball in the shape of a dragon's head just as Kushimaru was about to attack her. Kushimaru immediately stopped his attack and proceeded to jump upwards, above the dragon's head. He landed on the wire directly behind Anko. Before he could charge at her again, however, Zabuza rushed him, gripping Kubikiribocho. He swung the blade at the opposing swordsman, but Kushimaru quickly jumped into the air again and avoided the attack. Seeing an opening, Anko quickly made another hand sign, fire style, widespread ruin. The massive, dragon-shaped fireball that Anko released proceeded to change directions and flew back towards Kushimaru. The flames moved much more rapidly. Kushimaru, unable to dodge while in the air, was quickly engulfed in the flames. He let out a hiss in pain. Jinpachi reacted quickly by making hand signs with one of his hands. Water style, rising water slicer. The floor underneath Kushimaru was destroyed as a jet of water rose from the ground underneath and completely surrounded him and the surrounding flames. The fire was extinguished immediately. The water then proceeded to evaporate, leaving the swordsman alive. His clothes, however, were burned and some of his visible skin already had scars developing. Damn it! Anko cursed. That same old trick again, bitch. Didn't you learn anything? I countered it the exact same way I did when we fought in Kibo. Jinpachi taunted as he swung the Shibuki sword in a circular pattern around. I must say, it's been a while since I actually let myself get hit by an attack. I'm impressed. For a moment, I was worried. Kushimaru spoke up with a slight chuckle. Thank you for that. I forgot how fun it can be when an opponent actually puts up a fight worth my time. He then pointed the Nuwabari longsword at Anko. However, I must admit, I would like to hurry this up. Your little invasion is still going on, and I think Jinpachi's and my presence are needed on the battlefield. Immediately, a nearly invisible wire shot forward from Nuwabari and flew at Anko. The Konoha Jonin attempted to dodge the attack, but the wire moved fast enough to pierce her shoulder before she could move. The wire cut deeply into her skin before continuing to move until it collided with a wall, creating a hole. She winced in pain, still feeling the wire in her shoulder and feeling it cut into her. Kushimaru let out a small chuckle before he extended his longsword forward. Instantly, the wire that had pierced her body pulled Anko back. The Konoha Jonin was forcibly slammed against the wall. Instantly, the end of the wire that had pierced the wall came forward from the other side, creating another hole on the wall and piercing Anko's other shoulder in the process. Ack! She hissed. Kushimaru chuckled once again, and was prepared to finish her when he noticed Zabuza charging at him again with the Kubikiribocho. Jinpachi, kill her while I take out Zabuza-san. He ordered as he jumped, dodging Zabuza's strike. Jinpachi did not have to be told twice, he immediately charged at Anko, gripping Shibuki tightly and preparing to blow her body up with his blast sword. Anko attempted to pull herself away from the wires that had her pinned against the wall. She channeled the fiery chakra in her flare aura in an effort to melt the wires. Just as her plan was working and the wires were starting to melt, an idea entered her head. Wait, I'll stay like this for a little longer. This'll help me catch him off guard. She told herself as she stopped her attempts to melt the wires. Jinpachi continued to charge forward at her. He was now directly in front of her, and was about to slam the Shibuki blast sword on her. With him now so close to her, Anko channeled all of the chakra around her to her mouth. Fire style, Great Dragon Fire Jutsu. Anko released a gigantic dragon-shaped fireball from her mouth just as Jinpachi was about to swing his sword. He was too close to her to properly avoid the attack, and was immediately engulfed in the flames. Ah! He screamed in pain. Anko smirked, feeling triumphant, as she started to channel her chakra into melting the wires pinning her to the wall. She quickly freed herself. There was still an incredibly stinging pain from the holes in her shoulders, but she ignored the pain. She then, realizing that she could melt the wires, immediately reached for the wires that were on the floor of the battlefield. Channeling her chakra through them, she quickly melted them away, eliminating them from the battlefield. Her eyes moved towards Zabuza and Kushimaru. The two were, once again, fighting each other with their swords and strike at each other. Unlike their stalemate at the beginning though, there was clear sign of a fight on both of them, Zabuza had many pierced wounds on his shoulder and his left arm from Kushimaru's Nuabari, while Kushimaru had a deep cut on his side. Both swordsmen were breathing heavily as they continued in their attempts to kill the other. She then turned her attention back to Jinpachi. While he was indeed in flames and still screaming, the man had completed a series of one-handed hand signs. Another jet of water shot forward from underneath the floor and drenched him, extinguishing the flames. With the flames gone, he glared at Anko while breathing heavily. "That fucking hurt you, bitch," he hissed. "That's the point." Anko rolled her eyes. "You really love doing that thing, don't you? Just putting us on fire and hoping that we burn to death? Well, let's see how you like an old trick of mine." Jinpachi snarled as he made a gesture, causing his blast sword to be completely covered with explosive tags. Explosive blade technique, explosion rain. Jinpachi slammed his sword into the ground, causing the explosive tags on his sword to get launched into the air and fly towards Anko at a quick rate. "Not this time." Anko hissed as she jumped backwards and proceeded to channel her chakra into her hands. Fire style, Hellfire Rain. Anko chucked multiple large fireballs directly at the approaching explosive tags. She managed to hit a few of them, but there were too many explosive tags to destroy. The ones she wasn't able to hit were now starting to get dangerously close to her. She cursed softly to herself before continuing to jump backwards to avoid the approaching attack. She momentarily turned her focus back to Zabuza and Kushimaru. Kushimaru had managed to get behind Zabuza and delivered a kick to his stomach. The rebel Kirigakure shinobi was sent backwards directly at Anko. She didn't have the time to react and the two of them were sent back together and collided on the ground. The explosive tags that Jinpachi had released were now surrounding the two shinobi as they were getting off the ground. They then proceeded to light up before activating, releasing a series of massive explosions that created a large cloud of dust and wood. Both Anko and Zabuza shouted in pain. When the smoke cleared, Zabuza and Anko were breathing heavily and struggling to remain standing. Their clothes had burn marks and holes. They were also cut from the wooden debris that resulted from the explosion. "Pretty merciless technique of yours, Jinpachi," Kushimaru mentioned. "Hell yeah it is." Jinpachi nodded his head as a grin developed on his face. "So, you ready to end these fuckers?" "Yes." "Let's finish this," Kushimaru replied with a nod. He gripped the Nuabari longsword tightly as he turned his attention to both Anko and Zabuza. "Fair warning, but I will make this slow and painful." Zabuza and Anko turned to face each other for a moment. They both exchanged a look with each other before they nodded and turned their attention back to the two swordsmen in front of them. Zabuza immediately swung the Kubikiribocho sword forward at the swordsman. Kushimaru sidestepped out of the way while Jinpachi jumped, avoiding the attack. The sword impaled itself on the wall. Anko then raised right hand at the duo. Two large snakes rushed forward from the sleeve of her coat at the shinobi. Once again, Jinpachi and Kushimaru dodged the attack. Jinpachi proceeded to rush forward, gripping his Shibuki blast sword tightly. "Is that really the best you two could do?" he taunted as he lifted his sword. Neither shinobi gave a verbal response. Anko's snakes, however, continued to move through the room. They grabbed the Kubikiribocho sword in the wall with their mouth. Anko made a quick gesture with her right hand, causing the snakes to rush back to her with the sword. The Kubikiribocho was now rushing back again towards Jinpachi's back at a much faster speed than Zabuza had thrown it at. Jinpachi dash. Kushimaru was unable to finish his words before it was too late. The Kubikiribocho reached its target and sliced through Jinpachi. The swordsman's body was cut in half, his legs and torso fell to the ground separately. Now lifeless, his grip on the Shibuki blast sword was non-existent, causing it to fall to the ground. "Idiot." Kushimaru shook his head as he looked at his fallen comrade. "Were you honestly not paying attention? You just fucked us both over with your mistake." Anko quickly tossed the Kubikiribocho back to Zabuza. She then reached for the Shibuki blast sword and gripped it tightly in her hands. She and Zabuza then looked at Kushimaru intently. Looks like the tide of this battle just changed, Zabuza declared. So it seems. Kushimaru sighed. The masked swordsman of Kirigakure was a rational man. He knew his odds of survival against both Zabuza and Anko by himself were not particularly high. He really did need Jinpachi to either fight one of them or fight with him. Knowing that, however, caused a grin of excitement to develop behind his mask as he gripped the Nuwabari longsword tightly. If he was going to die, he was going to die fighting. Kushimaru charged forward at both Anko and Zabuza, attempting to pierce through one of them with his longsword. Both shinobi sidestepped to avoid his charge. Zabuza swung the Kubikiribocho in an attempt to cut him in half, but Kushimaru jumped in the air to avoid the attack. Seeing him airborne, Anko breathed out a large fireball from her mouth directly towards the shinobi. Kushimaru used the Nuwabari to slice through the fireball, preventing it from striking him. He landed on the ground safely. Zabuza immediately rushed him with the Kubikiribocho. Kushimaru rolled out of the way, avoiding the attack. He then attempted to pierce Zabuza's body, but Zabuza reacted in time and used his sword to block Kushimaru's attack. Kushimaru attempted to jump away and place some distance between himself and Zabuza, but before he could do so, two snakes charged forward from the left sleeve of Anko's coat. The snakes bit him in the shoulder, causing him to wince in pain. The snake bites injected a poison into his body, causing his motor control to weaken. The incredibly mobile swordsman was now unable to move. So, you want to finish him off? Anko questioned. Zabuza nodded as he tightened his grip on the Kubikiribocho. Humph. Some last stand. Kushimaru grumbled under his breath. The swordsman took a deep breath, preparing for his finishing blow, before turning his attention to Zabuza. Zabuza-san, since you're most likely going to give the Nuwabari away to some traitorous rebel, make sure to give it to a traitor that's a competent swordsman at least. A small snort left Zabuza's mouth. I'll make sure it goes to a true swordsman. With those words, Zabuza swung the Kubikiribocho and decapitated Kushimaru. His head rolled on the ground while the body fell down in its own pool of blood. With Kushimaru dead, Zabuza then reached for the Nuwabari longsword. Mission complete, Anko declared. Finally, the traitors to the legacy of the seven swordsmen are dead, and the swords can be in the hands of true Kirigakure shinobi again. He mumbled to himself. With that thought in mind, Zabuza and Anko quickly left the room to check in on the rest of the squad and assist in routing any remaining swordsmen in the building. The main targets of the mission were now dead, and it was now time to continue in assisting with the invasion in any way they could. Fire style, toad oil flame bullet. Jiraiya breathed out a flame bullet from his mouth directly towards a Kirigakure shinobi. The shinobi, who had been covered in oil from one of Jiraiya's previous techniques, was completely engulfed in flames. He screamed in pain before falling down, dead, as his body began to slowly burn away. With his opponent defeated, Jiraiya quickly rushed over to a rebel shinobi standing near the entrance to the village that Jiraiya had made. Status report. Jiraiya requested. Jiraiya-sama. The rebel bowed his head in response. The invasion is going better than expected. We've proven an incredible division and many Kirigakure shinobi have charged out here. We've done a great job with fighting them off and killing as many as we can, so Mei-sama and the other 3 squads in the village can accomplish their missions safely. Do we have any estimate of the casualties on our side? Jiraiya questioned. It's too early to say, Jiraiya-sama, but I would say not as many as expected. Most shinobi that have taken serious damage have already been taken to medical and are being treated. If the invasion continues at the rate it's at though, then we can predict the number of casualties to be low for both Mei-sama's rebels and your Konoha shinobi. The rebel continued to report. That could always change though. The Sannin nodded his head, accepting that answer. good. Continue with the mission then dash. Jiraiya-sama. Jiraiya turned his head just in time to see Ao approaching him. A grimace crept on Jiraiya's face at the sight of the man. Ao and a few other shinobi were assigned to stay at the rear and keep a lookout for any possible shinobi that could be approaching us. If he actually is coming to me, then he detected somebody. Yagura has reinforcements on his way, it seems. The Sannin shook his head at the thoughts. Report, Ao. Jiraiya spoke to the blue-haired rebel. Sir, we've detected 2 incredibly large chakra sources nearby. They should be arriving any instant, he stated. How large are we talking? Have they been identified at all? The Sannin questioned. At least one of them has a chakra reserve the size of Yagura's. Ao answered. The answer caused Jiraiya's eyes to widen in shock. As big as Yagura's? This is bad. Very bad. Our forces are probably going to have to redirect our focus to wiping out these 2 foot. I actually have seen a chakra source this large before. Ao continued to speak, pulling Jiraiya out of his own thoughts. I believe I know at least one of the 2 who is approaching. It's Ho-Dash. Before Ao could finish his words, a barrage of shuriken fell down upon the 2 shinobi from the air. Both shinobi noticed the oncoming attack. While Jiraiya was able to jump away in time, they came too fast for Ao to react. The blue-haired shinobi was struck in his back and his neck by multiple shuriken. The man quickly fell to the ground. Ao! Jiraiya shouted. The Sannin was about to rush over and check on Ao, but he stopped in his feet at the sound of a bird's caw. His eyes quickly scanned the air and noticed a crow flying in the sky above him. That's it for this reading. Hit like and subscribe for a free ticket pass going to the different worlds of anime fanfictions. Looking forward to having you on board again.